In Chapter 1, 4 years pass with virtually no deaths among the company, aside from Otto and Hagop, who died of natural causes, and recruit Tamduk, who fell into a crevasse during training. The company, now in service to its own name, recognizes no master but counts the warlords of Sien as allies who fear their supernatural powers as stone soldiers. The File of Nine supplies arms, money, and recruits, hoping to manipulate the company into restoring Sien's pre-Shadowmaster Golden Age, but the company refuses to intervene, focusing on its own mission. Their stationary presence allows the chaotic encampment to transform into an ordered settlement, gaining names, outpost, or bridgehead for newcomers, abode of ravens for the children of the dead. The settlement expands, building permanent structures, paving streets with cobblestones, and preparing a wall. Sleepy enforces strict work habits, ensuring the children of the dead will inherit a thriving, well-organized city when the company eventually departs. In Chapter 2, Tobo alerts Croker after the Baobas sing, signaling imminent death. One Eye appears incapacitated, possibly having a stroke. Croker rushes to help him, noting his frailty and history of surviving prior strokes. Tobo, a powerful young sorcerer, commands supernatural creatures that follow him and shows respect for his teachers and family. One Eye warns Croker to protect Tobo, Gota, and to beware Goblin's legacy, though Goblin is already dead. The children of the dead remain cautious of outsider sorcerers, while Sien's warlords maintain a tense power balance to avoid conflict with the company. One Eye falls asleep after issuing cryptic warnings. Tobo later realizes the real danger involves his grandmother, Nana Gota, not One Eye himself. In Chapter 3, Tobo's grandmother, Kai Gota, dies peacefully after prolonged suffering. Croker reassures Tobo, noting her death was a relief from constant pain. Tobo acknowledges One Eye's role in her care and begins planning funeral arrangements with Doge, respecting Nuangbao customs. The community, associated with the Black Company, will expect traditional rites. Supernatural presences, including Greylings and Dreamwalkers, stir around the abode of ravens, signaling death and unusual activity. One Eye, still alive, warns Croker of impending danger and prepares a powerful magical spear intended for Goblin. Doge observes that the supernatural creatures behave unusually and advises caution. Tobo's magical pets will help manage them. Croker reflects on Tobo's exceptional talent, comparing him to Doge, and acknowledges his growth into a skilled sorcerer. Willow Swan arrives with news from Sleepy, but One Eye remains fine for now. Croker prepares to address the emerging threat, leaving One Eye under supervision while moving out to investigate. In Chapter 4, night falls over the Grove of Doom as drums signal the start of a dark ritual. 100 bound prisoners are prepared for sacrifice while disciples of the Mother of Night perform frenzied rites. A 20-foot ebony statue adorned with symbols of power looms over the scene, emphasizing the prisoners' impending deaths. The Daughter of Night, a young, powerful priestess, prepares to reconnect with her mother, the goddess Kina, believing herself her spiritual child and future inheritor of divine power. Narayan Singh, an elderly saint and mentor, fears her impulsive actions may provoke the Protector's wrath or result in excessive bloodshed. The priests ready the prisoners for temple rites intended to reconsecrate Kina's temple and grant the Daughter of Night enhanced wisdom and vision. The daughter becomes increasingly impassioned, seizing a strangling scarf from a priest, risking over-involvement in the ritual. Narayan notices a crow signaling the arrival of the Protector, heightening his concern for the success and safety of the ceremony. In Chapter 5, Outpost is described as a quiet, orderly city with broad lanes and whitewashed walls, largely free from the older generation's involvement. Croker observes Tobo's supernatural pets acting unusually, indicating potential trouble near the Shadowgate. Headquarters, managed by Sleepy, operates as a tightly organized administrative center tracking every resource, though Croker prefers a more hands-on traditional approach. He discusses with Sleepy the recent death of Gota and the ongoing concern One Eye has about an unspecified impending event. Preparations for returning across the plain are underway, requiring careful planning and use of the Shadowgate. Sleepy updates Croker on reports of recurring premonitions of disaster among workers on the plain and Warlord's interest in acquiring Longshadow, a trapped Shadowmaster, which represents a potential tool for revenge or power. Tobo asserts he can handle the Howler. Alarm horns signal an urgent threat as a pillar of black smoke rises near the Shadowgate. Sleepy mobilizes runners and orders heightened alert across the city, preparing for potential danger. In Chapter 6, Severin arrives after midnight to report unusual activity at the Shadowgate. Hidden folk and crows indicate significant disturbance, prompting the issuance of arms and deployment of men with fireball poles across the city. Tobo instructs his supernatural allies to remain out of town for safety. Severin describes seeing a fast, black, large animal pass through the Shadowgate unassisted, which Croker identifies as a Forvalaka. Sleepy orders Tobo to locate and kill the creature, advising him to seek Lady's help. Croker emphasizes protecting One Eye, as the Forvalaka harbors a deep vendetta against him. The intruder's origins are uncertain. It may be Lisa Bowalk, who escaped through another gate, possibly gaining allies. Tobo works to check the Shadowgate seals to prevent further breaches, relying on his hidden folk companions. Croker addresses the assembly, recounting historical Forvalaka incidents to underscore the seriousness of the threat and prepare the company for potential danger. In Chapter 7, Croker and Lady watch over One Eye while Gauda lies nearby, noting her unchanged condition. Shadows in the room grow restless, signaling the approach of a dangerous entity, likely the Forvalaka Lisa de la Bowalk. Tobo's hidden folk and other supernatural allies are active nearby. Croker readies One Eye's spear, intended to subdue rather than kill the intruder. As the door explodes inward, the massive black Forvalaka charges, knocking over furniture and striking One Eye and Gauda. Croker attempts to intervene with the spear while Lady fires multiple fireballs at the creature, one grazing its skull but failing to stop it. The Forvalaka thrashes violently, overturning the chair and table, forcing Croker to scramble to protect One Eye and regain control of the spear. Despite their efforts, the monster continues to wreak havoc, demonstrating its speed, strength, and resilience, confirming the urgency of subduing it before it causes further harm. In Chapter 8, Mogaba senses imminent trouble as he walks through the palace corridors, noting the agitation of staff and crows, which signal impending unrest. He reflects on his own guilt and awareness of reality compared to Soulcatcher, who manipulates her surroundings to create her own reality. Arriving at the Privy Council chamber, Mogaba observes Gopal Singh and Aridatha Singh, competent officers under Soulcatcher's volatile rule. Soulcatcher materializes, announcing a Deceiver festival occurring in the Grove of Doom that evening, confirming troubling developments. She commands Mogaba to replace the Purohita, showing her merciless approach to priests who fail her. She reports that the Greys discovered old slogans painted on city walls, including Rajadharma and Water Sleeps, and that the Bodhi cult is resurging. Soulcatcher demands to know who is responsible and why they act now, but gives Mogaba no immediate orders regarding the Deceivers, leaving him to monitor the situation. She also instructs him to capture rats to feed her hungry offspring, emphasizing her control and whims. In Chapter 9, Croker awakens after being unconscious for 4 days, suffering burns and injuries from the Forvalaka encounter. Tobo and Mergen attend him, confirming that Lady is in better condition and asleep, but One Eye did not survive the attack. Croker reflects on One Eye's death as the end of an era, acknowledging the loss of the last member present from his original company days. He asks about One Eye's spear, which Tobo confirms is safe at his place, knowing it will be needed to finally confront and kill the Forvalaka, a task Croker has long planned. While recuperating, Croker experiences memories and dreams of past battles, hardships, and fallen comrades, realizing the cumulative toll of his soldier's life. Despite Tobo's healing spells and the aid of his supernatural allies, Croker struggles with pain, disorientation, and the effects of stasis. He contemplates his age and mortality, appreciating the life he has lived and preparing mentally for the continuing fight against the Forvalaka. In Chapter 10, 2 months after the Forvalaka attack, Croker is recovering from severe burns and injuries while moving painfully. Lady aids his healing with unguents, and they discuss the need to avenge One Eye's death by confronting the Forvalaka. Sleepy is concerned about Croker acting recklessly, negotiating with the File of Nine and other authorities to support their plans. Croker reviews what is known about the Forvalaka. It sustained severe injuries, including partial blindness and lost teeth, but retains the ability to return to Kadavar. Tobo has created fetishes from its remains to aid in tracking and containing it. The threat of Long Shadow, the imprisoned Shadow Master, remains central as warlords and courts are invested in its capture. Croker and Lady prepare strategically, balancing diplomacy, magical resources, and military caution, while aiming to leave the land of unknown shadows. Their overarching goals include settling scores with the Forvalaka, Long Shadow, and other lingering threats. In Chapter 11, Croker, having recovered from his injuries, asks Uncle Doge to resume martial arts exercises to regain his strength. Doge schedules the session at dawn outside his house, joined by Willow Swan, the brothers Loftus and Cletus, and the exiled Taglian royals, the Prabindradra and Radishadra. Blade is absent due to other duties. Sleepy keeps the royals informed and ensures their cooperation in the company's plans. Croker reflects on the Radisha and her brother's attitudes, noting their past betrayals but their usefulness in the company's objectives. DOJ leads the group in the Crane Kata, the first of a series of fencing exercises demonstrating precision and grace despite his age. Tobo joins, showcasing exceptional skill that highlights Croker's diminished agility. Croker struggles to keep pace, reminded by Doge of his earlier missteps. The chapter establishes Croker's physical rehabilitation, the involvement of key allies, and preparation for upcoming challenges requiring skill, discipline, and coordination. In Chapter 12, Blade descends into the fortress at the center of the glittering stone plain where the ancient construct Shivitya, a golem possibly created by gods or the builders of the plain, presides over the throne. Baladitya, a historian and nominal prisoner, works at Shivitya's feet, documenting its actions and the plane's history. Blade reports that the captain expects the Shadowgate knowledge soon and that treasure retrieval is underway. Shivitya is largely indifferent, though its presence dominates the plane. Blade passes through caverns containing company treasures and the remains or stasis-bound forms of former company members, including Cordy Mather, paying respects. He notes the dangers below, including the imprisoned Mother of Night, Kina, the ultimate adversary. The descent becomes increasingly perilous as darkness thickens and pressure intensifies, making movement and breathing difficult. Blade marks progress with a silver chalice, using coins to test the environment, and hears a distant cry for help, signaling an unexpected presence or threat deep within the plane. In Chapter 13, the Black Company travels through the land of unknown shadows toward Kangpai, a center of learning and spirituality, to secure Shadowgate knowledge. The terrain resembles their own world but is shaped differently by human influence, and Xian's moral and cultural landscape is foreign to them. The region is fragmented among numerous warlords, whose power is limited, and the File of Nine operates as a largely symbolic council. The company is feared for its independence and martial prowess, capable of enforcing its will where others cannot. Croker, still recovering from injuries, joins the deputation despite limited mobility and vision, supported by Sara, the foreign minister, who manages delicate negotiations with the File. The party includes Tobo, disguised as Shikandini, and other company members, with Tobo's shadow allies providing both protection and terror along the route. Kangfai is neutral ground, heavily fortified, and home to scholars like Master Santa Raxita, who welcome Sleepy and the company while they prepare for their mission. In Chapter 14, Croker and Swan observe Kangfai from a window while preparing for negotiations with the File of Nine. The company's members have disguised themselves to remain anonymous. Kangfai is populated mainly by celibate monks and nuns, who maintain neutrality and avoid worldly attachments, a fact noted by Master Santa Raxita. The company operates under the assumption that both the File and local warlords have spies among their recruits, but Sleepy manipulates them to serve her purposes. Shikandini, Tobo in disguise, is present but missing expected interactions, complicating matters. Sara manages logistics and ensures the company's safety while maintaining plausible appearances. The group awaits Sleepy's arrival, with tension over the upcoming discussions and the need to secure Shadowgate knowledge. Cultural norms of Kangfai require separation of men and women, limiting movement and interaction. The chapter establishes the company's strategic positioning, their awareness of surveillance, and the preparation for delicate negotiations with powerful, secretive authorities. In Chapter 15, the Black Company enters Kangfai to negotiate with the File of Nine. An elderly, high-ranking monk opens the meeting chamber, signaling the importance of the discussion. Sara negotiates reduced ceremony, facilitating practical proceedings. Sleepy uses Shikandini, Tobo in disguise, to distract the elders, manipulating them without detection. The company is aware of surveillance and uses prior knowledge of the file's identities as leverage. Sleepy asserts authority as captain, addressing individual members of the file, emphasizing the company's control and purpose, securing knowledge to repair the Shadow Gates and deliver Maricha Manthara Dumraksha. The file hesitates, requesting time to confer. While waiting in the antechamber, the company monitors movements and eavesdropping. Sleepy and Sarah orchestrate the covert acquisition of the required Shadowgate information. Once the operation is complete, the company departs via the lower gate, with Tobo maintaining the Shikandini disguise. Kangfi's monks remain unaware of the theft, and the party exits through misty terrain, encountering spectral creatures dissipating under Tobo's manipulation. In Chapter 16, Narayan Singh and the Daughter of Night continue fleeing through the wastelands, evading hunters and the forces of the Protector. Narayan struggles physically, weakened and in pain, having just killed a dog with his rummel, while the girl uses her abilities to misdirect nearby bats and owls. Their flight has led them south toward the uninhabited northern foothills of the Danda Presh, avoiding populated areas where capture is more likely. Despite exhaustion, they must continue because they are bound by destiny, tasked with enacting the Year of the Skulls and fulfilling the goddess Kina's plan. Observing the southern sky, they detect the alien constellation known as the Noose, a phenomenon linked to the glittering plane in Kina's imprisonment, which Narayan interprets as a guiding sign. With renewed determination, Narayan rises, ready to travel south during the day where they will be less visible, continuing their perilous journey to accomplish their divine mission. In Chapter 17, Tobo spends 10 days mastering Shadowgate tinkering, completing the Xian En Shadowgate 14 days after the Black Company returns from Kangfai. During this time, the File of Nine issues a bull declaring the Black Company enemies of the children of the dead, encouraging warlords to mobilize against them. However, neighboring warlords are cautious, and support in the form of volunteers, money, and materials continues to strengthen the company, offsetting any immediate threat. Sleepy, confident in the timeline, delays action, assured by Sarah that hostile forces will take months to respond, preventing mistakes from haste. Souverain, a young Shadowlander, is trained to scout and repair the home Shadowgate, demonstrating awareness of the long-term significance of his role without ambitions of power. Observing the preparations, the narrator considers sitting in on Shadowgate training and notes that Lady intends to extend her own education, ensuring the company is fully prepared for operations across the plain. In Chapter 18, the Black Company observes enemy campfires and notes the rapid mobilization of forces by the File of Nine, though the army is largely showmanship and intended for appearances. Mergen and the narrator share a drink reflecting on the absence and sacrifices of One Eye and the ongoing impacts of past captivity. The Black Company maintains control of their resources, including provisions like Skullbuster, ensuring they do not fall into enemy hands. Despite the looming threat, the 4th Battalion is reported to be moving out toward the plain, though Souverain's Shadowgate is likely not yet operational. The narrator is excluded from planning, understanding that Sleepy prioritizes efficiency over argument. He contemplates vengeance for One Eye, but defers to the larger strategy. The company recognizes that enemy troops are cautious due to the ongoing psychological impact of their supernatural assets, including Tobo's activities, the Black Hounds, and other night creatures, which maintain morale and deter direct assaults. In Chapter 19, Croker, Lady, and their group prepare to leave via the Xian Shadowgate for a dangerous mission. Doji, Thai DEI, and other Niuangbao allies are positioned along the route for support, while Tobo ensures the safety of his mother and the captain. Tranhun Hang arrives under a truce, signaling the File of Nine's tacit acknowledgement of defeat, as their army dissolves under pressure from the unknown shadows. The party consists of over 40 people, including company veterans, Niuangbao, and family. Tobo provides specialized keys for navigating the Shadowgate, ensuring operational control and safety. Ravens, under Tobo's command, serve as scouts and messengers, supplementing tactical awareness. Croker and Lady wear protective, symbolic armor, with Croker's Widowmaker suit adorned with arcane symbols of Xian. The group passes through the Shadowgate, avoiding detection, and prepares to ascend toward the plain, mindful of Sleepy's oversight and maintaining operational secrecy. The mission's stakes and strategic planning underscore the urgency and danger. In Chapter 20, Croker and his group prepare to navigate the glittering plain via the mystic roads connecting the Shadowgates. The plane is dangerous at night, with killer shadows emerging once darkness falls, making the stone roads and circles the only safe zones. Croker places the key given by Tobo into the socket at their circle to seal the road against hostile shadows. The group observes 3 Neph at the barrier, bipedal creatures previously only seen in dreams. Mergen interprets their gestures, understanding that they intend to redirect the party onto a safer auxiliary road. Lady uses her key to activate a ghost road, which becomes visible and guides them along the safer path. Doje oversees the operation, ensuring caution. The party prepares to remain overnight at the circle as instructed by Tobo. They plan to resume travel in the morning, following Croker's guidance, while carefully monitoring shadow activity and maintaining readiness for threats. In Chapter 21, Mogaba, the Great General, discusses the current state of Talios in the Protector's absence, noting that her focus on religious persecution in the provinces has eased local tensions. Graffiti from the Greys continues, indicating unrest and dissatisfaction. Aradatha Singh reports the arrival of Thikim, likely a Nuengbao operative, reflecting the ongoing threat of outside forces. Mogaba reflects on past failures and the dangers posed by the Protector, acknowledging her intelligence and pervasive influence. He formulates a plan to remove her from power, emphasizing the need for a surprise, secrecy, and precise timing. Mogaba convinces Aradatha and assesses Gopal Singh's loyalty, noting the necessity of minimal awareness among others to prevent the Protector from detecting their intentions. They agree that the operation must be sudden and massive, exploiting the unrest on the streets while maintaining plausible deniability. Mogaba understands that they have only one chance and failure will be fatal. In Chapter 22, Croker, Lady, and Swan arrive at Kadavar through the Shadow Gate, assessing the damage caused by Bowalk and the need to restore the gate. Croker notes that his current magical power is minimal and largely ineffective outside the Shadow Gates. He and Lady prepare for work on the gate while maintaining vigilance against potential threats. Upon arrival, they survey Kadavar, noting the ruins of former settlements and a lack of local inhabitants. Cleet and Loftus set up a secure camp nearby, while sentries are posted and Uncle Doge oversees guard duties. Croker observes signs of recent human activity and the ongoing appearance of unknown shadows. Swan reveals prior secret visits by Tobo and Sovereign to the Kadavar Shadowgate, indicating the raid is part of a larger plan by Sleepy to clear the experienced company members from the homeworld. Croker resolves to locate and kill Bowalk, using Tobo's pets to track her and control the escape route. In Chapter 23, Sleepy reaches the fortress at the heart of the plain, intent on examining the core of her scheme and controlling the treasure hidden beneath Shevetia's throne. She discovers Blade, who has been stationed below, listening for voices and unable to advance further due to the unknown shadow's resistance. Sleepy orders Tobo to accompany her while she organizes a small team, including additional company members, to descend into the ice caverns where the captured were once held. She instructs them to move the sleeping sorcerers, Longshadow and Howler, carefully to prevent disturbance. The cavern floor contains relics and treasure hoards previously hidden by the Deceiver cult. Sleepy identifies a source of pale blue light and considers the strategic significance of the Taglian Empire. Blade warns of the shadow's obstruction, but Sleepy uses burning oil to dispel the darkness, enabling them to advance. From below, cries of help, including goblins, echo, signaling the presence of trapped or imperiled individuals. In Chapter 24, the company has been in Kadavar for 4 days, contending with dangerous shadows that killed Spiff and Chodai Cho the first night. The remaining shadows are systematically hunted and destroyed, aided by the Black Hounds. Reconnaissance reveals that the area south of Kadavar is largely uninhabited, and the Forvalakas Trail is evident but unaccompanied by humans. The party deduces that Bowalk received assistance to navigate the Shadow Gates and survive in Xien, implying local collaborators with knowledge of shadows and gates. Sleepy dispatches her ravens to scout for Tobo and nearby natives. They learn that an army is approaching from across the mountains, and the Forvalaka is accompanied by a family of wizards, the Voroshk, who govern Kadavar and have learned to control shadows. The Voroshk are cruel and historically aware of the free companies. Sleepy and Lady plan to act cautiously, using their supernatural allies only when shadows can be eliminated without revealing their strength. In Chapter 25, Goblin recounts his 4-year captivity with Kina, the mother of deceivers, revealing that she kept him alive to use him, though he spent most of the time unconscious dreaming her horrific dreams. He explains that the Lance of Passion, a crucial Shadowgate key and symbol of company power, has been absorbed by Kina, now residing within her womb. Sleepy and the captain discuss Goblin's limited usefulness and the impossibility of fully trusting him, given his experiences. Sarah proposes sending Goblin to assist Croker with the Katavar expedition, reasoning he will be more comfortable among familiar allies. Sleepy and Tobo agree, despite Goblin's visible reluctance and fear of confronting the Forvalika again. Goblin admits uncertainty about his magical abilities, but consents to attempt them if necessary. Plans are set for immediate movement. Goblin will take the Katavar route, accompanied by the Chu-Ming brothers, while the rest of the group prepares to depart as supplies and morale have become strained. In Chapter 26, the company hunkers down in Katavar, preparing for the Forvalika's approach. The White Raven reports that the enemy is advancing quickly, leaving heavy forces behind to arrive faster and possibly execute a surprise. Croker explains the strategy. They will remain in position, allowing the Black Hounds to subtly torment horses and manipulate the Forvalaka by making her perceive One-Eye's ghost, hoping she advances ahead of her allies to be killed before reinforcements arrive. The team agrees to monitor Goblin, keeping him away from One-Eye's spear, and debates whether he should remain in Katavar temporarily, considering his uncertain loyalty and lingering trauma. Croker's group maintains vigilance while staying concealed. The company understands that the unknown shadows are cunning, and the Vorozhk forces might be complicit, but they rely on their scouting, subtle manipulation, and strategic positioning. The chapter ends with Croker and his allies observing the full moon, aware of the danger posed by both the Forvalaka and the shadows. In Chapter 27, the captain and Sovereign observe the Shadowgate near the plain, noting a small garrison of 56 people, including women and children, who are mostly farmers and not trained soldiers. The captain plans a breakout at night using commandos to strike before the enemy can react. Sovereign monitors the garrison, explaining their activities are controlled by the shadows and they are more active after dark. A 3-man team sets up a jar to capture a shadow, successfully sealing the barrier with a bamboo pin, using magic to prevent the shadows from escaping. Once the shadow catchers leave, Tobo moves through the Shadowgate into his birth world to secure the area. He prepares to cast a spell learned from One-Eye to put the shadow catchers to sleep. Meanwhile, battalions of the company begin marching off the plain in a large invasion, with the Radisha Draf and Prabrindra Draf present. Sovereign is tasked with securing the southern pass and later advancing on Karandaprash, spreading the news of the invasion through his creatures. In Chapter 28, Narayan and the Daughter of Night continue fleeing from the Protector, who has been persistently pursuing them. The girl senses the Protector's presence and reassures Narayan that the goddess is still there, signaling that events may improve soon. They observe crows scouting ahead, indicating that Soulcatcher's forces are nearby. As they move cautiously through the stony landscape, Narayan notices a twisted stump that he realizes is an illusion concealing the Protector, a trick she has used before. The pair freezes, aware of unseen dangers around them. They detect movement and growls from an unfamiliar, multi-limbed creature, which vanishes almost immediately, revealing that the Protector herself is nearby in a towering rage. The encounter signals a significant escalation. The Protector has changed or grown more dangerous, leaving Narayan and the Daughter of Night feeling constantly watched and vulnerable, despite no visible threats around them, and emphasizing the perilous nature of their flight through the Taglian territories. In Chapter 29, the forces in Katavar prepare for the Forvalaka Boak's arrival, guided by Raven Scouts. The captain organizes fireball projectors, positioning them to channel Boak toward One-Eye's black spear, intending to weaken or kill her. Goblin arrives with 2 companions, and the captain assigns him a post, keeping him under watch due to his unpredictable nature. As Boak approaches, flying Vorozhk sorcerers act as a distraction, but the unknown shadows coordinate to restrain the Forvalaka temporarily, allowing fireballs and weapons to strike her. The monster endures the attacks, staggering under poison-tipped javelins and arrows while exhibiting incredible vitality. Despite her strength, the spear penetrates her shoulder, causing some injury. Vorozhk attackers are incapacitated or retreat. The captain, lady, and doge use fetishes empowered with Boak's true name to further weaken her. Eventually, the Forvalika is immobilized, clutching One-Eye's spear, showing signs of dying as the assault succeeds, marking a critical victory for the company. In Chapter 30, the aftermath of the battle unfolds. The falling Vorozhk crashes through a shelter roof, prompting Mergen to investigate. Goblin joins the group, confronting the partially transformed Forvalaka Lisa Boalk, now half-human, and attempts to reach One Eye's spear, though restrained by the company. Lady acknowledges Goblin's role in Boalk's earlier defeat. Swan and his crew arrive carrying a young Varosh girl on a stretcher, bound and gagged, to neutralize her sorcery. Another, younger sister, follows on a second stretcher. The captain instructs the retrieval of equipment, including the girl's mount and clothing, while overseeing the safe evacuation of men, animals, and gear. The captured cloth from the Varoshk's flying apparatus proves impervious to knives, demonstrating its magical resilience. Assessing the older girl's severe injuries, broken bones, burns, punctures, and cuts, the captain decides she is unlikely to survive and will be left for her people. Preparations begin to finalize Boalk's death by decapitation and incineration. In Chapter 31, the Varoshk launch an aggressive assault from the northwest with an initial wave of about 25 flyers. The company is positioned on the uphill side of the Shadowgate, while many unknown shadows remain hidden among the woods in snail shells for protection. The Varoshk rain down incendiary objects, destroying shelters and vegetation, but leaving the injured girl and the Forvalaka's funeral pyre untouched. A second wave of 3 elder Varoshk arrives cautiously to examine the unconscious child. The company signals their people to resume moving, carrying the captured flying fence post and the injured girl, while maintaining a strong presence at the Shadowgate. Using careful deception and strategic positioning, the protagonists ensure the Varoshk's actions inadvertently trigger a disaster, releasing the shadows through the gate. Flying posts streak north as the Varoshk elders observe, unaware of the consequences of their arrogance. With the immediate threat managed, the company prepares to return to their own world while securing Narayan Singh and recovering Tobo's allies. In Chapter 32, Soulcatcher, the protector of the Taglian territories, senses a profound change in the world and the presence of the Black Company long before locating them. Her crows report unusual disturbances, and several birds are found dead, killed by mysterious unseen forces, confirming that something is hunting even her spies. Unable to discern the nature of the threat, she orders her crows to scout in groups until darkness, planning to use bats, owls, and her shadows after nightfall. When night arrives, she engages in a vicious unseen conflict with the Black Company, using her shadows aggressively, but they are outmatched by the company's new formations, allies, and sorceries. Exhausted by dawn, she gains partial knowledge of the threat. Though not completely defeated, Soulcatcher recognizes the company's lethal evolution and prepares to rebuild her forces. She resolves to rise stronger, gathering her shadows and strategizing for future confrontations while maintaining her survival instincts. In Chapter 33, the company prepares to leave Katavar after securing the Shadowgate. The Varoshk, previously a threat, are presumed to have withdrawn to regroup for their next assault. Croker assesses the Varoshk's likely strategic response and positions his team, including Goblin and Dodge, to intercept any unexpected moves. A group of billowing black shadow forms emerges from the slope, and Croker directs fireball-equipped men to control them with limited resources. The Varoshk attempt to communicate, and Goblin begins understanding their butchered language, revealing that some want to join the company, fearing the impending chaos. Croker forces them to strip, inspect their clothing, and bind them for control. He retrieves previously hidden snail shells containing their shadow allies. Once all shadow companions are secured, the company departs Katavar, ensuring the gate is sealed against incursions. Nightfall signals the initial stage of a new shadow invasion, with Varoshk flyers and small fireball-like lights appearing, indicating forthcoming resistance. In Chapter 34, Tobo completes his debrief from a magical raven and reports to Sleepy and her group, detailing Croker's findings on the Varoshk prisoners and their flying posts. Sleepy emphasizes the need for Tobo to accompany the company to prevent further sorcerer escapes. Croker notes that the Varoshk children are naive, uneducated, and unaware of their world's history, including the Free Companies and Katavar's standing stones. Tobo assumes responsibility for educating them, replacing Croker's guards with his own, including Riverwalker, fluent in Xian and related languages. He instructs the Varoshk on survival, cooperation, and the company's laws, while disciplining translators and ensuring compliance. The children are taught Taglian basics and the practical limitations of their flying posts and clothing. Overnight, the leader boy falls into a deep coma similar to Smoke's, though not caused by Tobo. The company secures the children for continued travel and integration, preparing them for education and assimilation into the army as they resume movement northward. In Chapter 35, Mogaba struggles to piece together a long, fragmented message delivered by numerous crows from the Protector. Once reconstructed, it reveals that the Black Company has returned, advancing through the Shadow Gate with thousands of well-equipped soldiers, including the Radishadra and Prabrindradra, and carrying new, unfamiliar supernatural allies. The message signals the Protector's retreat and inability to monitor them fully. Mogaba convenes Aradatha and Gopal Singh, emphasizing the urgent need to prepare for the Black Company's arrival, as their forces are scattered and Talios is vulnerable for hundreds of miles. He orders the courier battalion and garrison commanders to mobilize while considering how to leverage or control the panic among the populace. Mogaba assesses the loyalty and readiness of his troops, noting the potential influence of the returning Dross siblings, who may inspire desertions or rebellion. He concludes that an early confrontation is critical to confront the Black Company before his forces dissipate or morale falters. In Chapter 36, Soulcatcher navigates the barren Nether-Taglian territories, attempting to reach the stronghold at Nia. She avoids the main road to shorten her journey, but the terrain forces her to improvise as she lacks shadows, scouting birds, or any guides. As she progresses along a creek, she encounters multiple supernatural water creatures, and Aphants, a giant beaver, and a crocodile-like entity, all whispering to her and recognizing her true name, but she ignores them. She discovers a plank footbridge built by the local horse-stealing natives. Crossing it, she is confronted by a massive, dark, leprous monster with jagged teeth which threatens to attack. Soulcatcher raises her gloved hand, projecting a spray of sparkling dust that strikes the creature, causing it to scream and disintegrate. She leaps from the bridge just before it collapses and watches the fiend thrash and melt, her reaction accompanied by a playful, eerie sound from behind her mask. In Chapter 37, somewhere north of Karandaprash, the daughter of Night is thriving, now that the Protector is no longer pursuing them, though Narayan remains worried. She reassures him, urging him to rest from his long vigil. Suddenly she grows pale and senses danger. Emerging from the shadows, Iqbal and Runmas Singh, along with other soldiers in unfamiliar armor and red-eyed beasts, appear, signaling the return of the Black Company. The girl realizes why her aunt had stopped pursuing them. The Black Company is fully prepared, and Narayan, weakened by age and exhausted faith, cannot resist. The soldiers carefully capture the girl and Narayan. The girl's hands are placed in wool-stuffed sacks, wrists bound, and her head covered. Narayan is tied into a saddle to be transported more quickly. The soldiers act efficiently, not cruelly, but the girl understands that her fate, and Narayan's, is now entirely under their control. In Chapter 38, the company is moving through the Dandapresh Pass. Croker observes the exhausted column of men and mules, concerned about supplies at Sharandaprash. The Varosh children are fatigued and apathetic, with Tobo guiding and instructing them while their flying logs follow. Croker informs Lady that Runmust and Iqbal have successfully captured Narayan and Bubu, who continued toward the company after Soulcatcher stopped chasing them. Lady reflects on her lost chance at motherhood and the impossibility of being seen as parental figures by the daughter of Night. Croker and Lady acknowledge their regrets and the life they have led, noting the passage of time and past choices. Willow Swan passes them, teasing about their slow pace. Croker checks on Goblin, concerned about his potential mischief, while Lady reassures him that Goblin hasn't done anything suspicious. They resolve to quicken their pace as the rear guard approaches, planning to discuss matters further that night. In Chapter 39, Mogaba, the great general of Talios, manages the city's volatile reaction to news of unrest in the south. Using carefully placed half-truths, he frames the disturbances as a Shadowlander uprising linked to the Black Company, which is believed to be extinct. The populace is unaware of the return of the Prabrindradra and his sister, and Mogaba plans to dismiss any emerging rumors about them as imposters. Most garrison commanders comply with marching orders, while only a few senior priests feign neutrality. Communications with Soulcatcher have ceased, and the messenger crows have largely disappeared. Mogaba notes that the surviving Shadowlands population is largely ineffective, leaving no one capable of relaying information through shadows. He surveys the city, especially the Southern Gate complex, searching for a point to eliminate the Protector's influence upon her arrival. Aradatha Singh reports that Soulcatcher has reached Dejagor, reviewing troops while the enemy closes in, highlighting that Mogaba and his allies are running out of time to execute their plan. In Chapter 40, the company overtakes Sleepy north of Lake Tanji, slowed by recent floods. Lady hurries ahead, while Runmus Singh's rangers remain visible but distant. Tobo, with his father and Doge, manages the Varashk children and coordinates preparations. Sleepy becomes alarmed, realizing the Shadow Gate might collapse if Long Shadow dies, signaling the frail old man's imminent death. Tobo immediately begins organizing travel, instructing his father and Doge on managing the Varashk children, keeping them engaged and away from Goblin. Lady, Croaker, and other key members, including Willow Swan, Ty, DEI, Panda Man, and Spook, prepare to move, understanding the urgency. The Shadowgate's stability is critical to their safety. Its collapse would imperil their world. Unknown shadows accompany the group, providing protection and observation. Scouts are sent ahead. Tobo rides on Sleepy's super horse, leading the group, while the others follow as fast as possible, maintaining sufficient shadowy coverage to prevent surprise attacks. In Chapter 41, Runmust and Iqbal lead the rangers north with the Varashk prisoners, moving cautiously as their uneasy instincts warn of danger. Unknown shadows accompany them, providing limited guidance. Scouts locate a potential ambush site, revealing the enemy far outnumbered them and may have observed their route. Runmust and Iqbal decide to withdraw to protect the prisoners and avoid engagement until the captain arrives. Suddenly, Taglian troops fire arrows at their position, prompting Iqbal to launch a single fireball signal, igniting multiple small fires. The Rangers retreat toward a hidden gulch where prisoners and horses are sheltered, but Runmust is struck in the thigh by an arrow. The poorly trained Taglians panic and advance recklessly, walking into a prepared ambush. The Singh brothers survive, though many Rangers are killed or wounded. Sleepy's light cavalry arrives, cutting down fleeing Taglians. The Daughter of Night is captured and moved to the rear, while both sides tally heavy losses. In Chapter 42, the captain arrives at the aftermath of the ambush shortly after the fighting ends. Most Rangers survived, but only 2 avoided serious wounds. Sleepy interrogates prisoners, though none know anything about the Daughter of Night. She confronts Narayan Singh about the lack of prior warning, and learns the unknown shadows had likely known but only Tobo could communicate with them effectively. Blade explains the fort's history. Originally a courier remount station with minimal defenses, later expanded by Soulcatcher during the Kowloon Wars. The garrison is estimated at 150-200, though many are now incapacitated. Sleepy considers sending cavalry to surround the fort, but Blade notes Soulcatcher has likely already alerted the Taglian Empire. She checks on Runmust and Iqbal, confirming they will recover, and reassures Iqbal's children. Sleepy orders the company to concentrate at the fort before sunset, understanding that worn-out troops can serve as a temporary garrison. She acknowledges her own need for rest, but continues coordinating the force. In Chapter 43, Croaker and Lady traverse the valley toward the Shadowgate at dawn, reflecting on the long, arduous journey and the lingering trauma of the region under Long Shadow and the Shadowmaster Wars. The locals remain hostile, wary of outsiders, shaped by past horrors. They find Tobo waiting impatiently at the Shadowgate. The gate remains intact because Long Shadow has not left the plain. Tobo explains that Shvetya prevented Long Shadow from leaving until the gate is refurbished, ensuring the children of the dead remain protected. The group prepares to cross, with Mergen going first to ensure his son's safety. Lady and Croaker note the tension and fatigue among the crew, including Willow Swan's unusual silence and anxiety. Tobo emphasizes he cannot complete the gate's restoration alone, and they agree to set up camp before resuming work. Croaker speculates Tobo's haste is motivated by seeing Boo Boo again, though Lady is appalled by the notion. In Chapter 44, the Black Company reaches the aftermath of the ambush. Sleepy arrives shortly after the fighting ends, assessing the situation and interrogating prisoners. Most Rangers survived, but only 2 without serious wounds. Captured Taglians offer information under pressure, unaware of the Daughter of Night. Sleepy confronts Narayan Singh about the lack of prior warning, learning that only Tobo can communicate with the unknown shadows effectively. She sends for cavalry officers to intercept the fort holding the Daughter of Night, but recognizes that the distance and stragglers may limit effectiveness. Sleepy checks on Runmust and Iqbal, finding them recovering with Suruvija and Sara tending to the wounded. She also ensures the children are safe. She orders the company to move the main force to the fort before sunset, allowing the most exhausted to remain as a garrison. Sleepy acknowledges her own fatigue and the need to manage her men carefully to maintain operational strength. In Chapter 45, the Black Company captures the Nija stronghold, which is defended by fewer than 50 terrified and mostly injured soldiers. The defenders are granted the honors of war and allowed to leave with their families and possessions, clearing the road for the company's passage. Sleepy ensures the stronghold is secure and sends Dodge ahead to confirm Soulcatcher left no traps. She orders Narayan Singh placed where he cannot interfere and calls all battalion, regiment, and brigade commanders, along with senior staff, to assemble at the local headquarters within an hour. Sleepy and Sarah discuss the danger of Tobo and Mergen traveling together, considering separating them to reduce risk. Sleepy acknowledges potential resistance from other company members, noting that Runmoost and Iqbal will be reluctant to be apart. She convenes a major staff meeting to rethink strategy, recognizing that the distances involved are straining their strength while enemy forces grow stronger, and seeks advice on alternative approaches. In Chapter 46, darkness descends on Nija, bringing an eerie silence over the stronghold. The senior commanders, including Sleepy and Sarah, gather inside while soldiers rest, repair equipment, or sleep after the exhausting march. Goblin finds himself unmonitored for the first time since his liberation, realizing he has a rare opportunity to act freely. Narayan Singh, separated from the daughter of night farther than ever, is filled with despair, feeling his days and hours are numbered and that his faith is being severely tested. Amidst the darkness, he detects a faint, familiar sound, recognizing it as a deceiver signal. Using countersigns, he confirms the presence of a religious brother. The visitor delivers a message from the goddess, assuring Narayan that his sacrifices are acknowledged, his steadfast faith has made a difference, her resurrection is approaching, her enemies will be defeated, and he will stand at her side during the forthcoming year of the skulls as one of her most favored. In Chapter 47, the encampment below the Shadow Gate becomes a hub of unknown shadow activity as Tobo works to counter the Varoshk threat. He is particularly concerned about Long Shadow's keepers, though Shivetya assures him they are invisible to Varoshk eyes. Tobo has left the Golden Pickaxe, a holy strangler relic and key to the Shadow Gates, with Shivetya for safekeeping. The uninvolved members of the company pass the time playing Tonk, while Tobo continues repairing and reinforcing the Shadow Gate. He strengthens it to create invisible sentries capable of intercepting unauthorized intruders. Lady supervises anxiously, eager to rejoin the main force. Varoshk sorcerers appear cautiously, attempting to scout the area, but are unaware of the defenses. Tobo times the final adjustments, and he, Lady, and the narrator step back through the Shadow Gate, sealing it behind them. The Varoshk realize someone on the company's side can communicate with the Forvalaka, but the group remains ready to resist any interaction or threat. In Chapter 48, the Black Company encounters two Varoshk, Nashun the researcher and the First Father, who speak Juniper and demand the return of their children. The company refuses, warning that any attempt to break through the Shadow Gate will backfire. Tobo reinforces this, emphasizing the magical defenses in place. The Varoshk claim they are prepared for an exchange, but the company counters that the children are protected, and their knowledge of the plane is insufficient. The Black Company highlights that the Varoshk underestimate the plane's power and the historical legacy of Katovar's Free Company. Despite the Varoshk's anger and desperation, the company remains firm, asserting that darkness will always come to punish arrogance. When the Varoshk attempt to breach the Shadow Gate, a counter-magical blast throws them across the slope, leaving the barrier and road intact. The company departs, confident that the Varoshk will no longer pose a threat, while speculating about possible historical connections between the Varoshk and the Shadow Masters. In Chapter 49, the Black Company arrives at Nia and discovers the aftermath of a massacre. The stable they enter is illuminated with 50 torches, lamps, and lanterns. The soldiers inside were strangled, and Sleepy seeks to gather information about the event using the unknown shadows. She questions who was watching Goblin, realizing that his recent actions were likely observed. Goblin, however, has already taken advantage of his freedom, stealing horses and supplies and heading north unnoticed. Sleepy directs extra guards to protect the Varoshk, as Goblin had shown interest in them during travel. She decides the company will advance slowly into more hospitable territory to allow the group to regroup and support the Prabindradra and Radisha. Sarah notes that without Tobo present, the company is in serious trouble. Uncle Doge mentions he cannot stop Goblin, but can make life difficult for him using the Black Hounds, which Sleepy approves. The company pauses, waiting for everyone to catch up before moving forward. In Chapter 50, the Taglian Field Army assembles along the Rock Road, with additional forces gathering outside Dejagor and Taglios. Mogaba anticipates the Black Company will march west, then north along the Nagir River, and eventually east to the river main crossings, intending to exhaust them before encircling them. Taglios remains restive, but not rebellious, and most garrison commanders comply with assembly orders despite harvest season. The Protector avoids interference, leaving Mogaba freer to maneuver. He focuses increasingly on destroying the Black Company rather than the Protector, tracking his thoughts in a personal journal. Mogaba discusses the company's influence with Gopal and Aradatha Singh, noting that even before eyewitnesses existed, the Black Company's return has subdued internal factionalism. Aradatha reveals that Narayan Singh, previously thought dead, is connected to his family, and the company's actions are intertwined with Deceiver faith. Mogaba instructs Aradatha to manage the city's garrison discreetly to maintain order and exploit the growing fear and respect for the Black Company among the populace. In Chapter 51, Soulcatcher, enraged and in full leather, patrols the Taglian encampment between Goja and Dejagor, accompanied by a dozen terrified officers. The Black Company is halted for 6 days, causing confusion and frustration for Soulcatcher, who suspects a sudden change in their strategy. She uses supernatural espionage to cull her incompetent officer corps, targeting those promoted through nepotism rather than skill. Despite her efforts, the deserters' rate shows signs of rising. Soulcatcher's intelligence is weakening. Many crows and creatures for scouting are endangered, and she lacks modern materials for scrying. She acknowledges that trapping the Black Company is unlikely due to their superior intelligence resources and the depletion of her own shadows. Observing vultures circling to the north along a stream, she decides to investigate personally, ignoring any protests from her officers. She leaves the camp alone, confident that no one needs to accompany her. In Chapter 52, Lady is furious over Goblin's escape, criticizing the lack of constant supervision. Tobo monitors supernatural forces tracking Goblin, who has become the company's primary target to prevent further disasters linked to Kina. Despite his escape, Goblin stole nothing significant, only 2 horses and a saddle, and remains difficult to detect moving north along the road. Lady and Tobo debate the effects of Goblin's actions, noting that he carries a portion of the goddess Kina, making him far more dangerous than Narayan ever was. They conclude Goblin will take Narayan's place, watching over the Daughter of Night. Lady decides to send a message to her sister, alerting her to Goblin's movements, reasoning that her sister has a personal interest in stopping him and that it is in their best interest to involve her. Tobo agrees to transmit the message, though risks remain. The chapter focuses on tracking Goblin, assessing his threat, and coordinating with Lady's sister. In Chapter 53, Soulcatcher enters a haunted wood near the Rock Road and notices the soldiers are unusually absent, sensing something supernatural has driven them away. She detects a powerful, intelligent presence, shadow-like, part of nature but not of this world, waiting for her, yet not hostile. Soulcatcher extends her senses cautiously, preparing spells, but finds nothing visible, only grave markers and memorial posts from past battles. The presence communicates a message from Croaker, informing her that Goblin, now possessed by Kina, is active, Narayan Singh is dead, and the Daughter of Night is in the hands of troops south of Dejagor. Realizing Goblin may engineer her escape, Soulcatcher mobilizes, alerting Dejagor and dispatching cavalry to locate her niece and potentially control her talents for the Protectorate. She plans to take measures regarding Goblin's actions, aware of the significant threat posed by his possession and her niece's abilities, while observing the remaining vultures overhead. In Chapter 54, the group approaches Nija while discussing the Protectorate and Soulcatcher's movements. Soulcatcher has pickets south of Dejagor to intercept Bubu, who is moving along the Rock Road, and she doesn't fully trust the intelligence sent to her. The company notes the widespread use of Kina's name, reflecting the cultural impact of their previous actions. At Nija, Lady and Tobo inspect the post and find no signs of Goblin's presence, indicating he fled after Narayan Singh's murder. Sleepy's men, including Uncle Doge and stragglers, join them, totaling over 100. Lady demands Narayan Singh's body be located. It is discovered buried in the old cesspit with dirt and rock. Lady exhumed and dissected the corpse, confirming it as Narayan Singh, preserving his head, heart, and hands in brine. She leaves a trail of body parts for scavengers, intending to use them in revenge against Goblin, possessed by Kina, while a smaller captive Varosh girl reports that Sedvat has died. In Chapter 55, Sleepy monitors the company's movements, ensuring the Protector cannot observe them. Bubu, despite attempts to escape Soulcatcher's pickets, remains in captivity and will be returned to Soulcatcher within days. Goblin, possessed by Kina, is moving faster than Bubu's captors, trailing about 30 miles behind, and is expected to cause more disruption. The company observes the Varosh children, noting their progress in learning Taglian and their adaptation to new roles, with Gromoval resisting control but gradually cooperating. Discussions highlight the potential dangers Goblin poses and the challenge of managing him. The group debates the Howler's status. He remains a powerful but unpredictable captive whose allegiance could shift, making him a potential asset or threat. The company uses the slower northward march to organize camp, work on the annals, manufacture fireball projectors, and train the Varosh children. Tobo learns the basics of riding a Varosh flying post, aided by Shukrat demonstrating progress in their control and adaptation. In Chapter 56, 10 days into their march along the Villawash, the company reaches the manor of Garhanis, where a coalition of Taglian nobles and priests had resisted the Protector's rule. The company surround the manor at dusk, with Tobo using his talents to weaken the defenders' will. Fires and unknown shadows create confusion, driving the defenders to surrender. A party of men evacuates women and children under the impression of an overwhelming force. Sleepy instructs that those who surrender before dawn may keep possessions and return home safely, while those resisting past sunrise face forced conscription, a plausible threat given the Black Company's reputation. The defenders' conscripts are mostly indifferent, making surrender common. The company enters the manor the next morning without serious casualties. Sleepy delegates judgment over the captured nobles and priests to Radisha and her brother, sparing only those Tobo identifies as irredeemable agents of the Protector. The success is amplified by rumors spread across the region, enhancing the company's influence. In Chapter 57, the company reaches a Taglian province with a Gunny-speaking population. They arrive at a manor-like village where Sleepy decides to awaken the Howler, a long-dormant, powerful sorcerer. The ritual takes place in a dimly lit temple hall, with Sleepy as Life-Taker and the narrator as Widowmaker, serving as intimidating figures while Tobo handles the awakening. The audience includes senior officers, regional notables, and Tobo's Varosh students. Howler is freed from his trance within minutes, reacting with agony and shrieks. Though disoriented, he begins to recognize allies, addressing Life-Taker in an ancient northern tongue. Sleepy explains the current situation to him, emphasizing the need for cooperation. The Howler's immense power and knowledge make him a valuable, though potentially dangerous ally. Widowmaker warns that the Howler should be kept away from the Voroshk. Tobo's Voroshk students follow the proceedings carefully, understanding the significance. Preparations continue to integrate Howler into the company's strategic operations. In Chapter 58, the company convenes at Garhanis to meet Aridatha Singh, commander of the city battalions in Talios, who, along with the great general and Gopal Singh, plans to overthrow the Protector in her absence. Sleepy introduces the assembled leaders and explains the current situation, emphasizing that the Daughter of Night and Kina remain threats that must be managed. Aridatha reveals that his brother Sagriva and Jaker will assist by scouting the best entry point for a nighttime assault on the city. Sleepy outlines a diversion strategy. The main force will appear to move west toward the Nagir River, while Blade and light cavalry circle back east to approach Jaker secretly. The group discusses potential risks, noting that some visitors may be Soulcatcher's agents and that General Singh's presence could compromise security. Tobo scouts the area north of Garhanas with Shukrat, preparing for reconnaissance while the main force appears at rest, maintaining the ruse. In Chapter 59, Soulcatcher struggles to capture the goblin creature, which evades her forces for 2 weeks, ultimately requiring her personal intervention aided by the unseen, shadowy cat. Meanwhile, the Daughter of Night is held in a lavish cage within Soulcatcher's tent, decorated with chains and charms and forbidden contact with men. Soulcatcher taunts the girl, revealing a Narayan Singh's death, but the Daughter of Night remains composed, asserting the Black Company's endurance. A cavalryman delivers news of a corpse from the south, possibly linked to traitors, but dies before providing details. Shortly after, Goblin is brought in, bound, and gagged. Soulcatcher gloats at his capture, noting the precision of the trap and the attention of the Daughter of Night. She assaults Goblin, damaging his face, and orders the creation of additional cages for her sister's husband, and Willow Swan, intending to display them alive outside her palace as a warning, reflecting the Dominator-era style of punishment. In Chapter 60, Howler completes a functional 4-passenger flying carpet shortly after the company moves westward from Garhanas, while Sleepy orders a dozen more carpets of varying sizes. Tobo learns to use the Varoshk flying posts, borrowing them from Shukrat and Arcana for nocturnal visits, though Lady warns him about the potential dangers posed by the Varoshk children. Magadan and Gromoval resist cooperation, each with their own motives, and Lady expresses concern over their potential interference during operations against Dejagor. Tobo tests the Varoshk's capabilities by dueling them individually, discovering that their power is limited and largely dependent on their posts and garments. Shukrat is the only exception. The assessment alleviates fears that the Varoshk could pose a serious magical threat. Tobo also learns how to manipulate the posts to change whom the Varoshk recognize as their master, though the source of their power remains uncertain and hazardous, necessitating careful study. In Chapter 61, Tobo leads a formation of 3 flying posts toward Dejagor, carrying Willow Swan, Lady with Aradatha Singh, and Shukrat with Uncle Doge, while Mergen, Tai Di, and the Howler follow on a carpet. Swan experiences a severe religious relapse mid-flight, and Mergen and Tai Di struggle with stress and fear. Tobo signals a ground team as Blade and the cavalry advance ahead, positioning themselves for the upcoming operation. Upon reaching Dejagor, the party lands and is escorted to Sugriva Singh's shop, who, though displeased, recognizes the necessity of cooperation. Sugriva provides intelligence on gate defenses, noting the west gate is most heavily guarded, while the east gate is lightly manned but accessible to Blade. Tobo instructs Shukrat to inform Blade to approach via the east gate to maximize cover of night. Preparations begin for a coordinated strike, with Lady and the narrator readying themselves in Lifetaker and Widowmaker armor for intimidation and operational success. In Chapter 62, the Black Company launches its occupation of Dejagor. The gate is quietly opened to allow Blade's 600 Shen-armed soldiers to enter, each carrying banners declaring unit affiliation and slogans. Widowmaker and Lifetaker lead the column, wielding a burning sword and a light-infused spear, respectively. The city, mostly Goonie, senses a shift but remains largely asleep, unaware of the invasion, though some witnesses flee at the flash and noise. Doge, Mergen, Tai Di, and Swan manage hostages at the gate, while Aradatha stays hidden at his brother Sugriva's shop. Howler, Tobo, and Shukrat circle above, with Howler's shrieks contained in a glass bowl. The main assault begins at the Citadel, where fireballs destroy the gate and breach walls. Shadows flood in, moving through holes, and the Citadel's defenders offer no resistance. Lifetaker and Widowmaker follow. The city is effectively conquered with minimal injuries, and the protagonists prepare to move Aradatha into Taglios undercover. In Chapter 63, Soulcatcher becomes aware that the Black Company is operating unusually covertly, as her non-human spies fail to track them effectively. Recognizing the shift, she raises the Middle Army's state of alert and intensifies training while personally preparing for combat. She receives word of the Dejagor disaster from a lone rider, confirming that the company has abandoned its westward path and is moving to divide her forces from the orphan troops outside Dejagor. The city's defenders are mostly officers, and the remainder are preoccupied with the harvest, reducing organized resistance. Soulcatcher notes the invaders' speed, intelligence, and probable use of heavy sorcery. She resolves that the next engagement will be more balanced, vowing to personally confront the company. Her anger and renewed focus inspire and electrify her officers, while those who fail to match her intensity are swiftly replaced, ensuring that her forces are fully committed and prepared for the forthcoming battle. In Chapter 64, the remnants of the army near Dejagore attempt to organize a defense after losing their base, but their efforts are ineffectual and constrained by concern for economic consequences. 6 days after the city's fall, they receive news that the Black Company's main force is advancing directly toward them. Previous skirmishes with the cavalry occupying Dejagor had already decimated local forces, and the approaching company now presents an overwhelming threat. The night following the news, a third of the army deserts under cover of darkness. Those remaining endure constant psychological harassment from unseen forces. The feared southern army never appears, as it proves unnecessary. The Dejagoran soldiers within the Taglian force abandon the cause, and the cavalry in Dejagor alone disperses the remaining core of the army. The local forces collapse entirely, leaving the area effectively undefended against the Black Company's advance. In Chapter 65, Mogaba grows increasingly uneasy after Aradatha's return, aware that Lady has been seen in the palace and that Soulcatcher could discover her dual presence. He discusses the deteriorating situation with Gopal and Aradatha, noting that the Black Company advances with superior sorcery, weapons, troops, and intelligence. Mogaba acknowledges that confronting the Protector personally is impossible due to her defensive abilities and psychic awareness. The city remains calm despite news of Dejagor's fall, though graffiti spreads with taunts and warnings. Mogaba reassures Aradatha that if he and his forces do nothing, they face no direct danger unless the Protector triumphs. Aradatha agrees to maintain his duties with the city battalions, trusting Mogaba's counsel. Gopal remarks on the potential conflict between the Black Company and the Protector, leaving the men contemplative about the unpredictable consequences. All three resolve to perform their roles and let fate determine the outcome. In Chapter 66, the Black Company prepares for battle midway between Taglian territories, assembling 10,000 troops in perfect order with polished armor, weapons, banners, and groomed horses. They face an enemy force 3 times their size, though poorly organized. Sleepy intends to crush the opposing army quickly and force Soulcatcher back to Taglios, hoping she will be vulnerable to ambush by Mogaba and his allies. Tobo is confident that a decisive shock will break the enemy ranks. Trumpets and drums signal the advance, with 1,000 men held in reserve around the Radisha and her brother. Lifetaker and Widowmaker lead the advance but halt before entering missile range. Soulcatcher's army is arranged in 3 lines, with the front line numerous but weak, and the second stronger. Enchantments and battlefield movements soon obscure vision, concealing the forces and making it difficult to distinguish enemy formations, preparing for the engagement to follow. In Chapter 67, Soulcatcher prepares her middle army for engagement, instructing officers to manage the 3 successive lines carefully. She orders that the second and third lines be informed that the collapse of the first line is deliberate, warning any cowards they will be killed. The reserves are positioned along the edge of the woods to collect fleeing soldiers and move prisoners to the north bank. As the enemy advances, Soulcatcher observes the first line shatter but not pursue, allowing beaten units to regroup. Goblin and the Daughter of Night, held in cages, remain under her control but appear amused. The enemy halts repeatedly to treat their wounded and reorganize, which gives Soulcatcher time to prepare her reserves. The second line fares slightly better but ultimately collapses as well. Soulcatcher monitors the battlefield, anticipating the third line's breakdown, and retreats to her tent in the woods to continue managing prisoners and await allied messengers. In Chapter 68, the Black Company launches its aerial assault as ground fighting collapses the first 2 Taglian lines quickly. The third line resists longer but ultimately begins to rout. As the advance continues, Soulcatcher unleashes a prepared sorcery. Deadly red circles erupt beneath advancing soldiers, killing hundreds almost instantly. The magic is passive and triggered by movement, stopping the company's advance without pursuing them. Aerial firebombing strikes the Taglian camp and tree line, but the killing fields persist among company troops. The Taglians attempt a disorganized counterattack and are destroyed by the same sorcery. On the ground, Croker discovers the dead encased in melted earth and armor, estimating heavy losses. The sorcery suddenly stops, suggesting Soulcatcher has lost control or withdrawn. Vultures reveal something dangerous lurking in the woods. Lady maps the pattern of the death zones, revealing deliberate placement. Sleepy halts the advance and summons her commanders to reassess the battle. In Chapter 69, the Black Company secures the battlefield after the collapse of Soulcatcher's middle army. Most Taglian soldiers surrender or flee, avoiding unnecessary slaughter to protect their families and preserve the region's economy. Sleepy orders that any soldier who abandons his weapons be spared, consolidating control without overkill. Despite casualties, the company considers the engagement a decisive victory, though Soulcatcher remains at large and angry, posing a continued threat. Tobo uses Lady's chart to trigger a booby-trap killing field via Howler's flying carpet, neutralizing remaining hazards. Runma Singh is tasked with safely marching prisoners through the area to prevent accidental deaths. Attempts to repurpose the deadly devices are dismissed, as Lady explains Soulcatcher has safeguards to prevent their misuse. Later, Tobo reports that the Daughter of Night has been located in a cage. Soulcatcher abandoned her, possibly leaving her as bait for another trap, indicating continued strategic danger. In Chapter 70, the Black Company cautiously investigates a damaged tent where the Daughter of Night was reported captured. Inside, they find one broken, empty cage and another containing an unconscious naked woman who appears to be Soulcatcher. Goblin is missing, raising immediate suspicion. Examination reveals distinctive scars and injuries, confirming the woman is Soulcatcher, not the Daughter of Night. She appears alive but unresponsive. Tobo reports that Cat Sith has sighted Goblin alive and leashed by Soulcatcher near the north edge of the woods, where she is rallying soldiers and building earthworks, indicating the real Soulcatcher has fled. The company realizes the captured woman is an impersonation orchestrated by the Daughter of Night. Despite uncertainty and danger, Sleepy orders the advance resume to prevent the enemy from regrouping. Debate arises over killing the captive, but Croker argues Soulcatcher may still be useful, suggesting she is gravely ill and temporarily vulnerable. In Chapter 71, Soulcatcher remains unconscious and unresponsive, showing the same symptoms Sedvad once did, frustrating attempts to force her cooperation. Skirmishing continues without decisive engagement. Sleepy reports a new problem. Troops pursuing the remaining enemy lose motivation as they approach, becoming convinced they should be aiding a holy destiny tied to an undefined her. Lady identifies this as a known effect and orders aerial harassment from beyond spell range to break the influence. Croker leads bombardment from above using fireballs and improvised weapons, forcing the enemy's spellcaster to move and weakening her hold on the soldiers. The Daughter of Night, disguised as the Protector and guided by Goblin, launches a direct attack towards Sleepy, converting soldiers who approach her. Her assault disrupts company formations and nearly recaptures Soulcatcher. Tobo attempts a surprise attack with the Howler, but Goblin counters, damaging the flying carpet and crashing them into the woods, ending the chance to exploit the brief opening. In Chapter 72, a tense stalemate develops as the company cannot reach Goblin and the Daughter of Night, who are regrouping while unaware that the company's strongest weapons are temporarily lost. Ravens report that Tobo and the Howler survived their crash but are badly injured and hiding in the woods near the enemy. Sarah panics and demands action, while Mergen and Croker struggle to keep her quiet to avoid alerting the Daughter of Night. Croker learns that Tobo is unconscious or delirious and unable to command the unknown shadows. With time running out, Shukrat steps forward and offers to rescue Tobo, explaining that her own enchanted clothing will protect her from the Daughter of Night's influence. Recognizing that Tobo's survival is essential, Croker accepts the risk. After confirming that the clothing cannot be shared or adapted, Croker agrees to help retrieve Shukrat's gear so she can attempt the rescue alone. In Chapter 73, Shukrat dons her family's enchanted clothing and leads a rescue mission to recover Tobo and Howler from the woods near the Daughter of Night and Goblin. Croker, Mergen, Tai, DEI, Doje, and a small escort advance cautiously. They locate Tobo badly injured and Howler unconscious. Shukrat's clothing protects her from the Daughter of Night's influence, allowing the group to function despite the lingering compulsion effect. As the rescue begins, Taglian soldiers converge. Fighting erupts with Dodge, Mergen, and Tai Di holding them off while Tobo and Howler are loaded onto the flying post. Goblin attacks in a monstrous empowered state, shrugging off blows until Croker wounds him with One-Eye's spear, forcing Goblin to retreat. The rescue succeeds, but Dodge and Tai Dei are killed. Tobo survives but is severely injured. The enemy begins withdrawing north, ending the engagement. In Chapter 74, the Varosh children attempt to escape during the chaos caused by Soulcatcher and the Daughter of Night. They argue over leadership and strategy, delaying their departure. After sundown, they use disorientation spells to evade their guards. Gromoval kills some soldiers, but draws attention to himself while trying to steal a flying post, triggering alarms. Magadan and Arcana focus on reclaiming their clothing, essential for their magical safety, and consider obtaining a key to the Shadowgate to escape the world. They acknowledge that Shukrat, who has retrieved her post and clothing, is effectively integrated into the Black Company and uses her situation strategically. Magadan plans to follow Arcana's lead while remaining cautious. The unknown shadows always present make secrecy difficult. During their attempted escape, a devil appears suddenly. Magadan is killed, Gromoval is badly wounded, and Arcana suffers sexual assault, sustaining a broken leg and cracked ribs. Discipline among soldiers is minimal, directed mainly at the perpetrators. In Chapter 75, Mogaba is confronted in his quarters by Lady and a young blonde sorceress. They inform him that the Daughter of Night, wearing Soulcatcher's leathers and aided by Goblin, has overwhelmed the Protector and destroyed most of the Middle Army. The girl is heading toward Talios, and Mogaba's forces are too weakened to pursue. Lady warns that the Daughter of Night possesses an aura compelling anyone nearby to serve her, complicating any direct attack. Mogaba recognizes the extreme threat, equating the Daughter of Night to the coming year of the Skulls and acknowledging Kina's destructive power. He discusses with his aides Gopal and Aradatha the reliability of the report, confirming that the Protector is temporarily neutralized and that the Middle Army is largely destroyed. They debate gathering intelligence, improving courier support, and gauging loyalty among priests and bourgeoisie. Mogaba plans to feign the Protector's presence while exploring options to counter the Daughter of Night, including potential assassination or sabotage. In Chapter 76, the Varosh children attempt to escape during the chaos caused by Soulcatcher and Bubu, arguing over leadership and strategy, which delays their departure. They eventually use disorientation spells to evade their guards. Gromoval betrays himself while attempting to steal a flying post, triggering alarms. Magadan and Arcana focus on reclaiming their clothing, essential for magical protection, and consider obtaining a Shadowgate key to leave the world. Shukrat, having recovered her post and clothing, is effectively integrated into the Black Company. The unknown Shadow's presence prevents secrecy, complicating the escape. During their flight, a devil suddenly appears, killing Magadan, severely wounding Gromoval, and sexually assaulting Arcana, leaving her with a broken leg and cracked ribs. Discipline among the soldiers is minimal, targeting primarily the perpetrators of Arcana's assault. The escape highlights the dangers of the world, the Varosh's inexperience, and the constant influence of the unknown shadows on events. In Chapter 77, Goblin and the Daughter of Night flee across Goja, their mounts frightened and Goblin blinded for protection. The soldiers who had joined them fall away as they leave the spell's influence. The two cross the bridge at Goja and reach the north bank at dawn, after the destruction of the Taglian Middle Army. The Daughter of Night convincingly impersonates the Protector, using her aura to influence garrison commanders. Exhausted and reluctant, she is compelled by Goblin to continue toward a designated holy place, the Grove of Doom, where they will be stronger. She learns that their goal involves preparing for the Year of the Skulls. The Books of the Dead, thought destroyed by Soulcatcher, have been preserved within Goblin. He knows them by heart. To fully realize their power, the texts must be recovered and placed in a safe location for the Cantor priest to perform the resurrection ritual. The chapter ends with the Daughter of Night renewing her resolve to act. In Chapter 78, reports of bad news reach the company, signaling that the cavalry sent to probe Goja has likely suffered serious losses. Tobo, despite his injuries, briefs Sleepy, Sovereign, Runmust, Riverwalker, and other commanders. He explains that the Hidden Folk have been tracking Goblin and the Daughter of Night, who travel in a fog of divine darkness and confusion. Goblin possesses the Books of the Dead, and once the Daughter of Night transcribes them, they will initiate the rites to bring about the Year of the Skulls. Tobo emphasizes that the resurrection requires both of them to survive, and that the process of copying the books will take considerable time, so the threat is not immediate. The company discusses possible ambushes, realizing that their unknown shadow allies cannot harm the Daughter of Night physically, but could potentially disrupt her efforts. Sahara adds that both Goblin and the Daughter of Night are replaceable tools, though the threat from the glittering plane persists as long as Kina exists. In Chapter 79, Sleepy leads the company north, moving cautiously with the injured. At Goja, they encounter no direct resistance, though the Protector's forces had damaged the main bridge over the main, which takes over a week to repair. The Prabindradraf and his sister gain the loyalty of the local people and soldiers through preaching and diplomacy. The prince and his sister remain at Goja with native recruits, while the company continues north to position between Talios and the Grove of Doom. The The new camp is set near a dense forest concealing a Shadowlander cemetery. Goblin and the Daughter of Night remain inactive, not beginning transcription of the Books of the Dead due to lack of supplies. Tobo, Gromoval, and Arcana recuperate slowly, while Soulcatcher shows no improvement and appears to be weakening, following a grim trajectory similar to Sedvad's. Shukrat tries to integrate with the company, showing eagerness to belong, while Arcana remains withdrawn. In Chapter 80, the company is camped, tending to the wounded, particularly Tobo and Soulcatcher. Tobo is restless but slowly recovering from a broken leg, while Soulcatcher is dying from an unknown affliction, possibly caused by Goblin, and shows no improvement. Lady struggles emotionally, spending time with Soulcatcher and confronting the reality of her sister's condition. Shukrat fusses over Tobo and shows her loyalty, while Arcana remains withdrawn, still traumatized by recent events. The narrator and Lady discuss possible ways to preserve Soulcatcher, ultimately deciding to take her to Shivetya, who has previously healed Howler, and potentially use the ice cavern to stabilize her until a proper diagnosis can be made. The plan is practical, aiming to save Soulcatcher without immediate risk to the world, while acknowledging Lady's emotional attachment. Shukrat observes that both Soulcatcher and Lady act from a sense of unspoken, unexpressed love, similar to Goblin and One Eye. In Chapter 81, the company conducts funeral rites at the Shadowlander Military Cemetery for Tai, DEI, and Uncle Doge. Sara leads the ceremonies, assisted by Tobo and Mergen, while the remaining survivors observe. Taide's cremation follows a ritualistic flame passage, reflecting his honor, whereas Doge's body sparks dispute between groups advocating burning versus exposure on platforms, a traditional method for high priests of the Path of the Sword. Severin notes that exposure may have originated to prevent skinwalkers from stealing corpses, though the Middle Army never completed the process. The narrator observes the cemetery, noting vandalized markers and the absent threat from skinwalkers. Soulcatcher attempts to draw power, but finds little remaining due to Goblin's attack and past events. Lady monitors her growing strength cautiously. Preparations are made for Howler to assist in future tasks with the carpets, and the group acknowledges the deaths, their camaraderie, and the continuation of company traditions while positioning for the next operations. In Chapter 82, Sleepy keeps the army occupied by ordering a massive clear-cut near camp, creating bonfires and smoke meant to provoke Goblin and the Daughter of Night. Despite Croker's concerns about provoking a vessel of Kina, Sleepy presses forward. Lady informs Croker that Howler has completed a new flying carpet so they can leave immediately, as Soulcatcher is dying and time is short. Croker plans a southern journey to the glittering plain to take Soulcatcher to Shivetya, hoping for healing or preservation, and to return Gromoval to the Voroshk elders as a political gesture. Arcana agrees to go, while Gromoval is given no choice. That night, Lady, Soulcatcher, Gromoval, and Arcana depart on the carpet, while Croker, Mergen, Tobo, and Shukrat travel by flying posts. En route, Croker and Mergen briefly stop at Dejagor to check on Blade's occupation force, before continuing south. In Chapter 83, Mogaba and Aradatha Singh observe Taglian soldiers conducting close-order drills south of Taglios. They review reports confirming that Howler, Lady, Croker, Mergen, Tobo, and 3 White Wizard children departed south after moonrise on a flying carpet and 3 flying posts passing near Habin's tree. While some sources claim the others are dead, Mogaba remains skeptical. Support for the Protector has largely vanished outside territories under Mogaba's control, and the Empire remains indifferent to the returning royals. Mogaba decides to test the readiness and intelligence of his forces in light of the enemy's movements. He orders Aradatha to prepare a full-scale field exercise, issuing rations and organizing the left-wing division, but to do so in a measured manner to gauge troop preparedness without raising alarm. Mogaba instructs that spies report directly to him henceforth. He then convenes the rest of his staff and cavalry commanders for detailed planning and coordination. In Chapter 84, Willow Swan reports to Sleepy that Mogaba's cavalry has made contact 3 miles west of the Rock Road, signaling increased enemy pressure. Sleepy and Swan realize Mogaba is probing and attempting to provoke a response to gauge their strength, possibly to distract from other maneuvers. The 2 deceivers, the Goblin Thing and the Daughter of Night, hold official titles, Cadidas and Daughter of Night, but maintain tension between them, and the girl appears increasingly disillusioned. Mogaba escalates his harassment, and his cavalry skirmishes interfere with Sleepy's scouts and pickets, while commercial traffic declines along the Rock Road. Sleepy mobilizes forces. One brigade makes noise behind pickets, another remains in camp, and the rest continue normal duties. The Taglian cavalry's probing is countered by Sleepy deploying her native recruits. Aradatha Singh is tasked with an offensive to occupy the Grove of Doom and cut the enemy's withdrawal, but he receives Mugaba's orders to pull back due to an expected counterattack, revealing Mugaba's tactical foresight. In Chapter 85, the Daughter of Night endures oppressive boredom and indoctrination at the Grove of Doom, growing resentful of the Khadidas' constant efforts to strip her identity and turn her fully into a vessel for Kina. While sitting outside the Deceiver Temple, Taglian archers suddenly attack, killing Deceiver pilgrims and striking her with blunt arrows before she can invoke her power. Taglian soldiers overrun the grove and capture both her and the Khadidas. Aradatha Singh confronts her, recognizes her as the Daughter of Night, and declares it his duty to prevent her destiny. He orders the Khadidas bound and removed, despite her warning that it contains Kina and cannot be killed. The goblin thing is seized and secured. Aradatha insists she cooperate and warns her against resistance. Unable to use her love me power, the Daughter of Night submits, determined to survive captivity until an opportunity arises to resume Kina's work. In Chapter 86, Sleepy and her staff assess the aftermath of the recent skirmishes with Mugaba's forces. Willow Swan reports that an enemy division east of the Rock Road initially moved to flank them, but then inexplicably retreated north, leaving the reason unknown. The unknown shadows remain largely uncooperative, and Tobo has not directed them to assist. Sleepy grows frustrated, feeling Mugaba may have outmaneuvered them again, despite their favorable casualty ratio. Swan warns that Mugaba could return to exploit weaknesses, keeping the company alert and exhausted. Sarah notes the onset of rain, but before it begins, a patrol reports that the Grove of Doom has been cleared of deceivers. The Daughter of Night and the Goblin Thing are missing. Their bodies were not found among the beheaded dead. Sleepy orders TSO lean to investigate the incident, determine if anyone can be tracked, and ensure the company avoids any potential traps, maintaining caution against Mugaba's unpredictable tactics. In Chapter 87, Lady, Croker, Mergen, Tobo, Shukrat, and Howler approach Shivetya's fortress via Shadowgate, traveling south across the glittering plain which appears wintry and patchy with ice and snow. The group observes the plain's 16 sectors, each with unique weather and time effects. Tobo and Shukrat fly ahead excitedly while Howler lags behind due to his oversized carpet. They enter the fortress through a roof hole, where Shukrat argues with Varoshk sorcerers Nashin and the First Father. Inside, Baladitya, their agent and copyist, is napping but maintains his work despite the chaos. The interior is unsettling, and Shivetya, a massive demon on a throne, regards them with intense interest. He exudes a mushroom-like mana to sustain visitors. The group notes his ethereal appearance and the unusual communication method, speaking directly into minds. Lady and Croker finally join Baladitya, and the team prepares to navigate the fortress, wary of its oppressive and uncanny environment. In Chapter 88, tensions continue inside Shivetya's fortress as the surviving Varoshk elders argue bitterly with Arcana and Shukrat, blaming others for their ruined world and refusing responsibility. Arcana admits she does not want to return home, which enrages the elders, while Shukrat also chooses to stay with the company. Croker realizes the elders fled their homeworld out of fear and ignorance and have avoided learning what truly happened there. Consulting Tobo, Croker learns from Shivetya that the Kadavar Gate is closing. Most surviving shadows remain trapped beyond it, and attempting to interfere would be deadly. Croker confronts the Voroshk elders, confirms they will not return home, and offers them a place in the Black Company instead. He plans to recruit them cautiously, keeping them powerless and controlled until trust is earned. Arcana proposes strict safeguards. Croker brings the idea to Lady, setting the stage for dangerous new alliances. In Chapter 89, Sleepy focuses on outmaneuvering the great General Mugaba. Knowing anticipating his offensive mindset is insufficient. She creates 2 separate staffs, one of experienced veterans, including Iqbal, Runmas Singh, Riverwalker, Sarah, and Willow Swan, plus Blade, who knows Mugaba personally. The other composed entirely of Sien officers unfamiliar with Mugaba or the terrain. Sleepy hopes to exploit the gap between the staff's differing perspectives. Meanwhile, her cavalry actively scouts, chases enemy patrols, and seeks Mugaba's main forces. Mogaba conducts similar reconnaissance, relying on questioning civilians, while traffic on the Rock Road diminishes but continues. Each staff proposes likely enemy strategies, and Sleepy runs counter-campaigns to test outcomes. After 2 almost sleepless days, she gains no clearer insight from the analysis. Ultimately, Sleepy decides to rely on her intuition, trusting her experience in prior strategic encounters with Mogaba rather than fully depending on the complex, conflicting counsel of her divided staffs. In Chapter 90, Mogaba decides prolonged maneuvering favors the company by giving them time to regain mystical support. He concludes their enemies are overstretched, holding a long line, from the Grove of Doom to their camp with too few men, while his army has tripled their numbers. Mogaba orders a return to his original plan. He will attack straight ahead with the 2nd Territorial Division to engage and pin the enemy. Aradatha Singh is instructed to move along his previous route, emerge behind the company, and advance up the Rock Road to destroy fugitives. Mogaba promotes the aggressive officer Narendranath Saraswati, assigning him to overrun the company's camp, believed to be held by raw recruits, then strike their rear and reserves. Mogaba orders standards left behind to mislead the enemy and demands strict discipline and provisioning. He further directs Aradatha to hide in the Grove of Doom overnight and later sweep south to trap escaping forces. In Chapter 91, Sleepy prepares her forces anticipating Mogaba's maneuvers. She warns her captains that he will split his army and emphasizes the need for obedience, dismissing any dissenting officers. She positions her troops for skirmishing and harassment, deliberately holding back to conceal the concentration of her forces and lure Mogaba into a trap. When the great general advances with a spread-out formation and numerous banners, he does not press a full attack. Sleepy engages in limited skirmishes, stepping back whenever Mogaba responds in strength, guiding him toward the second part of her planned trap. On the far right, a division emerging from concealment loses cohesion as it must traverse a mile under exposure. Their commander is overly focused on attacking prematurely rather than maintaining formation. Sleepy uses the combination of deception, controlled engagement, and careful positioning to manipulate Mogaba's movements while keeping her main force concealed, setting the stage for the tactical ambush she has planned. In Chapter 92, Mogaba realizes something is wrong, as reports indicate Sleepy's forces are stiffening on one wing while falling back on the other, suggesting an unexpected imbalance. He orders a general advance, but at a slow cadence, sensing a trap. Minutes later, disastrous news arrives. Narendra Nath Saraswati's division has collapsed, Saraswati is dead, and most of his officers are killed or captured. Almost immediately, Mogaba sees organized enemy formations advancing, each soldier clearly marked, while cavalry sweep away fugitives and scattered resistance. Mogaba understands that Sleepy has sprung her trap, striking the 2nd Territorial with her strongest troops. He orders a full attack at the fastest cadence, hoping momentum and superior numbers will carry his men forward before panic sets in. He acknowledges that Sleepy has finally outmaneuvered him, but notes that Aradatha Singh is still moving to strike from behind. Mogaba commits to driving straight toward the enemy camp, gambling everything on breaking through its defenses. In Chapter 93, Aradatha Singh learns of the disaster unfolding against Mogaba's forces from fleeing Vedna horsemen and quickly discerns the enemy's advantage. He orders his division, backed by well-drilled city battalions, to form for battle. Within 2 hours, Singh's troops engage the invaders and their traitor allies in a chaotic and bloody melee with the remaining Taglian forces that Mogaba could hold together. The attack is a near-complete surprise, and Singh's soldiers, inexperienced in facing the terror of the battlefield, are aware that other divisions have already collapsed. As the day progresses, exhaustion overwhelms both armies, and the soldiers gradually cease active fighting, allowing the enemy to withdraw without further resistance. The outcome of the battle remains ambiguous. It is unclear who decisively won. Its significance is left to future historians who will judge whether the engagement becomes a pivotal moment for Taglian society and culture, or a fleeting episode with minimal long-term impact. In Chapter 94, Sleepy is physically and emotionally exhausted, resting against a dead horse after the battle. Despite having held the field and broken the backbone of the last Taglian army, she feels no triumph, recognizing that Suvrin's tactical decisions were as responsible for the victory as her own. Suvrin sits beside her in silence, both momentarily overwhelmed by the aftermath. He informs her that Willow Swan is dead, and Sleepy laments that many old friends likely perished, noting Iqbal and Riverwalker went down as well. They discuss caring for Saruvia and managing the battlefield with recruits who had mostly hidden. They anticipate Mogaba's possible counterattack, acknowledging his persistence. Sleepy reflects on Willow Swan's life as a drifting, everyman figure who never fulfilled his dreams. She regrets acting before Tobo and the others returned, but accepts that Mogaba would have pursued her regardless. Sleepy feels responsible for the fallen comrades, recognizing the full scope of the tragedy is yet unknown. In Chapter 95, Croker and Lady stand over Soulcatcher in the Cavern of the Ancients, recognizing she is partially aware but unreachable. They decide they must return to the company, worried that Mogaba may exploit Sleepy's lack of wizards. After rejoining the others above, preparations begin to leave the fortress. The Voroshk sorcerers agree to stay rather than return home, surrendering their flying posts. Croker insists that Gromoval cannot be allowed to leave, and he is taken below and entombed in the cavern with other frozen bodies. Croker then descends with Lady past the restored black barrier to confront Kina directly. They briefly see Kina's immense, monstrous form before her will overwhelms Croker, and he loses consciousness. His flying post carries him out automatically. Croker awakens weakened but alive, Lady safe beside him, aware he has survived an encounter with Kina and gained crucial insight for the future. In Chapter 96, Croker is outside the Shadow Gate with Panda Man and Spook, learning that monitoring the gate has been easy and the locals friendly. Tobo and Shukrat arrive, with Tobo crying out that a battle has occurred and immediately rushing north, followed by Shukrat. Croker and Lady recognize that any battle fought while they were away could bring trouble, but Croker initially refuses to pursue, noting distortions in reality that suggest the Hidden Folk are following Tobo. The Hidden Folk are loyal only to Tobo, often leaving Croker's side to aid him. Croker decides to follow a route similar to Sleepy's northbound path, diverting slightly to investigate a potential anomaly seen earlier. He spots fast movement among a stand of oaks, identifying the Neph, beings thought trapped in the Voroshk world, though their presence near the Shadow Gate is unexplained. Despite searching at treetop and lower levels, Croker finds no trace and is urged by companions to continue north toward more urgent matters. In Chapter 97, Croker observes the aftermath of the battle beside the cemetery, noting wounded soldiers still being treated by exhausted surgeons and many dead awaiting burial. Burial details move through the rows, collecting the dead, while medical supplies and personnel are stretched thin. Runma Singh leads Croker to Sleepy, who is disoriented and near collapse from exhaustion, having had no proper rest since the fighting began. She reports massive losses: Swan, Blade, Iqbal Singh, Riverwalker, Pham Hukli, Liwan, the Chun brothers, and engineers Cletus and Loftus are dead, with Sarah still missing. Croker reassures her that he and Suvrin survived and that they are taking turns holding the situation together until Mogaba returns, though the great general is unlikely to act soon. Croker then inspects the unburied dead, overseeing burial preparations for Taglian and non-Taglian soldiers, ensuring graves are properly marked. He reflects on the scale of the losses and Sleepy's tactical skill despite the devastation. In Chapter 98, Mogaba abandons plans for a renewed attack 26 hours after ordering a break in contact, realizing his army is too badly mauled to exploit the enemy's disarray. Only Aradatha Singh's division remains cohesive, and it is assigned to screen the retreat, which consists largely of shattered remnants of the 2nd Territorial. Enemy cavalry remains active, preventing Mogaba from approaching Sleepy's forces again. Sensing that his opportunity has passed and that he is being watched by hostile supernatural forces, Mogaba reassesses his options and concludes that withdrawal toward Talios is unavoidable, despite the damage it will do to his reputation. He considers using captured prisoners for political advantage, but learns they were sent north for safety. Accepting that retreat is necessary, Mogaba orders an aide to go south under a flag of truce to arrange an armistice so both sides can collect their dead. He also summons priests of all faiths, recognizing the immense burden of properly handling the fallen. In Chapter 99, Tobo is distraught and Mergen is withdrawn as the company searches for Sarah, who remains missing despite the efforts of the Hidden Folk. Tobo determines she was not captured by the Taglians, who are unaware of her importance. Lady believes Sarah likely died of her wounds while hiding, though Croker fears she could be used to manipulate Tobo. Many soldiers across all units are missing, some dead and others unaccounted for. Sleepy posts a large reward for Sarah's capture under the pretense of espionage, using Mergen's detailed description. Tobo reports that Mogaba has moved the Cadidas and the Daughter of Night to the palace and staged a public appearance of the Protector, followed by threatening graffiti across Taglios. Attention shifts to rebuilding the army as commanders demand replacements. Sleepy reorganizes forces by redistributing one intact brigade to reinforce others, minimizing disruption and maintaining cohesion. Tobo argues they must act soon against Taglios while their sorcerous strength lasts, and Croker concedes he may be right. In Chapter 100, Mogaba receives a report from Gopal Singh that anti-Taglian graffiti is widespread, but its perpetrators remain unidentified, attributed to either demons, ghosts, or clever agitators. Aridatha Singh notes that regardless of the source, the population is aware of the messages influencing public perception. Mogaba and his advisors debate how to respond, agreeing to monitor the vandals but otherwise ignore the graffiti, except for cryptic slogans like "The Kim is coming," possibly signaling the Daughter of Night's companion or deceiver activity. Mogaba expresses concern over Goblin, who insists on being addressed as the Cadidas and poses a threat due to his independence and potential for destruction. The Daughter of Night is assessed as less threatening alone. Discussion focuses on methods to neutralize the Goblin side, including treachery or poison, since his Kina aspect cannot be countered by conventional means. Mogaba recognizes his enemy's proximity and the limited prospects for success, yet resolves to continue his efforts. In Chapter 101, Lady grows increasingly withdrawn as her ability to steal Kina's power returns, forcing her to tightly control herself after the Cadidas emerges to dominate Goblin. Sleepy orders preparations for a renewed advance on Taglios, keeping the camp busy assembling siege equipment. Tobo reports that Mogaba and his allies intend to continue fighting, despite internal pressure to recognize the Prabindra Draf. He reveals that the Cadidas and the Daughter of the Night escaped captivity after sensing danger, and are now hiding in the abandoned sections of the palace. Their escape distorted reality so thoroughly that even the hidden folk lost track of them. Evidence suggests they are rebuilding the Books of the Dead. Sleepy orders an immediate sorcerous strike on Taglios to capture Mogaba, Gopal Singh, Goblin, and the Daughter of Night, placing Aridatha Singh in command. The army will follow the next day. Before the raid, Lady must help Tobo raise the dead to learn Sarah's fate, delaying departure until after midnight. In Chapter 102, Mogaba oversees preparations within the palace to prevent the deceivers from hiding and to secure the site against enemy infiltration. The Greys and Palace Guard demolish walls and seal hallways, while psychics and ghost hunters join the hunt. Palace staff are mobilized to maintain order and cleanliness, ensuring the space is presentable for approaching enemies. Messengers report discovering 3 corpses, long dead and remarkably preserved. Mogaba orders them sealed in place, identifying them as deceivers who previously attempted assassinations. He emphasizes guarding all food to prevent poisoning, planning constant vigilance. Mogaba instructs Gopal Singh to continue the house cleaning and security effort day and night using all available personnel. After supervising, Mogaba retreats to his quarters, taking time for personal hobbies before napping in the Protector's warded apartment, which serves as his sanctuary. Scouts report that Croker and his group have returned to the company, now equipped with enhanced sorcery, signaling that a confrontation could occur at any moment. In Chapter 103, Croker, Lady, and Mergen attempt a necromantic seance to contact Sarah, but it fails. The ritual is disrupted by Kina, whose influence interferes with Lady's power, making her increasingly unstable. Lady confirms that Sarah cannot be reached, leading her to conclude Sarah is likely dead, though the matter remains unresolved. The failed attempt delays Sleepy's raid. Later, Howler completes a large carpet capable of transporting 16 people plus freight. Croker, Lady, Tobo, Mergen, commando-trained soldiers, and Elder Varoshk prepare for the mission to Taglios, dressed in Varoshk apparel over Widowmaker and Lifetaker armor. As they depart, Croker and Lady review which companions require the closest supervision. Lady notes that Kina is more awake than she has been in years, exerting influence over events since Goblin's descent. Croker inquires about Soulcatcher's shadows, and Lady concludes the unknown shadows have likely destroyed them all. Tobo agrees to monitor the situation and report back. In Chapter 104, Mogaba struggles to stay awake in the early hours while observing the northern face of the palace from the Protector's window. He is alerted twice, once by city noise and once by shouting from below suggesting the Caditas may have been spotted, but realizes no immediate threat is present. The unknown shadows are unable to bypass the glass and permanent wards protecting the palace. Mogaba notices dark figures arriving at the expected location atop a turret, their usual point of approach. Despite their predictable arrival, he feels sorrow rather than triumph, reflecting on the fates of all involved and recognizing that past decisions, particularly those made at Dejagor, have led to this moment. He contemplates warning others of the danger, but understands it is too late to alter events. Mogaba resigns himself to the inevitable continuation of the conflict, accepting that the unfolding confrontation must play out to its conclusion. In Chapter 105, the company infiltrates Mogaba's palace, descending the stairs toward his quarters under Lady's lead. The approach is noisy but initially unnoticed, and Mogaba's door is found unlocked. Inside, the raid collapses when killer shadows are unleashed, Soulcatcher's hidden shadows, causing immediate panic. Fireballs meant to fight the shadows instead inflict heavy, friendly casualties. One of the Elder Voroshk is killed, many commandos are incapacitated, and Lady, Howler, Mergen, and others are taken out of action. Shukrat maintains her composure and shields herself. Tobo forces his way inside, triggering intervention by the unknown shadows who destroy the killer shadows but too late to prevent major losses. Palace alarms sound, drawing guards and greys into the fight. Croker organizes an emergency withdrawal, ordering Arcana and Shukrat to extract the carpet and flying posts while he evacuates the wounded and dead. The raid fails to achieve its objectives, leaving the company battered and under pursuit. In Chapter 106, Mogaba observes the aftermath of the failed raid from a high vantage point in the palace. He notes that survivors from Croker's team remain strong enough to fend off guards and greys while evacuating the wounded and dead, indicating he faces a final confrontation. His killer shadows were only partially effective, confirming the enemy possesses a comparable force. Projectiles such as the crossbow bolts, arrows, and javelins fail to harm the raiders, and only one person is injured. A fireball's light reveals Lady in Lifetaker armor, drawing Mogaba's attention. At that moment, one of the raiders in Widowmaker armor on the flying carpet moves directly toward him, cape spreading to obscure vision, signaling an imminent attack. Mogaba realizes he has no remaining tactical options and recognizes the skill and resilience of the opposing forces, underscoring the danger he now faces as the company retreats with their wounded and equipment. In Chapter 107, Croker survives being flung from the flying post during the raid on Mogaba's palace, sustaining bruises but no permanent injuries. He is recovered by Arcana and Sleepy, who confirms that Lady survived in Voroshk armor and may recover with Tobo's help. Only 3 individuals, Tobo, Arcana, and a lucky soldier, Tam Dolin, escaped unhurt. The rest are injured or distressed. Croker emphasizes the need to get Tobo focused again, as Mogaba could launch another attack. Sleepy instructs Croker to mentor an apprentice. Souvrin volunteers to learn the annals and becomes Croker's understudy. 2 days later, Sleepy formally appoints Souvrin as lieutenant of the Black Company and her heir apparent. The company establishes camp outside a hilltop stronghold overlooking the Rock Road approach to Talios, preparing the plain for training and potential defensive engagements. Small Vedna cavalry appear, but Croker advises against leaving the stronghold unsecured. Sleepy's campaign planning continues, informed by the recent disastrous raid and the survivors' experience. In Chapter 108, after repelling a Talios relief sortie, Sleepy negotiates the surrender of the fortress commander, Lal Mindrat, and his forces, securing paroles and safe passage for almost all soldiers. Croker advises her to be pragmatic but treacherous if necessary. Mogaba's harassment of the company's forward units continues with horsemen and skirmishes. The company reaches the south gate of Taglios, a newly reinforced and heavily fortified wall with an expansive cleared zone before it. Sleepy deploys Souvrin and the troops to face the city, observing that no response is forthcoming. Croker notes the construction of wide pathways and cleared land, previously used for grain and vegetables, which will require Tobo's management to organize effectively. He expresses concern over Lady's condition, who remains in a liminal state between life and death, possibly influenced by her connection to Kina. Croker hopes that if Tobo can be guided through his grief, they might determine Kina's level of control before the upcoming engagement. In Chapter 109, Mogaba counters the company's airborne advantage by filling the skies over Talios with thousands of giant box kites armed with poisoned blades and cutting tails, using the seasonal winds to deny air movement. Though Varosh clothing protects against injury, the kites can entangle riders and knock them from their posts. Croker orders Shukrat to clear the skies, and her autonomous post returns with her badly entangled but having destroyed many kites. Croker forces Tobo to help free her, hoping to re-engage him emotionally after his father's death. Shukrat confronts Tobo directly, refusing to accept his withdrawal or excuses, and provoking an emotional response. Croker presses Tobo to focus on intelligence gathering inside Talios, urging him to release his guilt. Shukrat bluntly redirects Tobo's grief into anger by naming Mogaba as responsible and reminding him the great general is still inside the city. The company deliberately begins pushing Tobo toward action, knowing his power is essential for the coming fight. In Chapter 110, the unknown shadows inform Tobo that Mogaba and his allies are entrenched and waiting for the company to falter, noting the soldier morale may waver despite Sleepy's wealth. The company quickly clears Mogaba's kite defenses and conducts nightly high-altitude raids, dropping firepots on the properties of the Protector, Mogaba, and the Greys, though fire spreads beyond intended targets and smoke thickens over Talios. During a second midnight reconnaissance of the occupied palace, the company learns that Mogaba's earlier attempt to seize their encampment near the Shadowlander cemetery, while tactically disastrous for his forces, yielded unforeseen advantages. Sleepy's chief of staff Milos Sedona and other select personnel train on Varoshk flying posts to observe the palace, with Croker supervising to provide backup. Sedona ventures too close, and Mogaba's forces launch fireballs. One strikes Chu's post, causing an explosive chain reaction that collapses a section of the palace. Croker is flung from his steed amid falling debris and spreading fires, highlighting the extreme danger of the operation. In Chapter 111, Croker is recovered after the palace explosion and rushed to report to Sleepy, urging immediate action while Taglios is in chaos. Fires rage in and around the palace, raising the possibility that Mogaba, the Cadidas, or the Daughter of the Night, could escape amid the disorder. Sleepy agrees action is needed and orders Sovereign to begin attack preparations. She then personally flies with Croker on a Varoshk post to observe the situation despite the danger. From above, they see the palace burning intensely, with no kites remaining and heavy turbulence preventing close approach. Aradatha Singh has established disciplined inner and outer cordons around the palace, screening all who exit, limiting enemy escape. Sleepy confirms the need to strike immediately and discusses alternative approaches, acknowledging that a direct assault on the city walls is impractical. Croker deduces the plan involves a river approach, though Sleepy notes river defenses exist. Recognizing timing constraints, Sleepy orders a return to camp to accelerate preparations for the impending assault. In Chapter 112, Taglios is under siege as Mogaba and Gopal Singh monitor the situation. Gopal is physically battered from proximity to fires and smoke. Aradatha reports that enemy forces are exploiting the city's confusion, with ghostly or terror tactics observed near the south gate and river forts. Mogaba predicts the main attack will come via the river, where Taglios is weakest. Enemy commandos are ferried onto the walls by flying carpets quickly reinforced, while the bulk of the 2nd Territorial remains along the waterfront. The Barbican garrison responds but is stretched thin. News arrives that enemy swimmers have cut chains and booms controlling river traffic, dropping firebombs on artillery engines. Mogaba notes the captain's forces are probing the city and using diversions. He remains cautious about committing troops prematurely. He orders a tighter cordon around the palace and the girl's location, freeing additional soldiers for defense. District commanders are tasked with managing local crises, while Mogaba monitors crowd sentiment to prevent surprises. In Chapter 113, Sleepy concentrates the company's main effort on capturing the south gate of Talios, committing most flying assets and assault forces to the Barbican complex. Coordinated strikes supported by Tobo and aerial attacks heavily damage the Barbican, allowing assault teams to breach the outer gates. Mogaba does not immediately respond, and nearby civilians flee while wounded Taglian troops withdraw into the city. The lack of reinforcement causes unrest among Mogaba's own soldiers, raising suspicion that he is deliberately allowing ground to be taken. Sleepy temporarily shifts forces to expand a foothold along the upriver waterfront, then redirects the attack back to the south gate, once Loyalist troops respond elsewhere. After both gatehouses are cleared, Sleepy orders a full advance through the Barbican into the city. Officers are instructed to push directly toward the palace, aiming to seize Talios' symbolic heart quickly, believing resistance will collapse once it falls. Word spreads that the Prabrindra Draf is approaching to reclaim rule, reinforcing the momentum of the assault. In Chapter 114, Mogaba receives confirmation that the South Gate has fallen and reacts calmly, immediately assessing remaining daylight. He orders Aradatha to reinforce the waterfront, anticipating the company's main push toward the palace, supported by heavy sorcery, while a counterattack there may succeed. Mogaba instructs Aradatha to return to his own headquarters to limit casualties and places Gopal Singh in charge of the palace, ordering that no one enter or leave. Gopal is told to warn the invaders about the Kadidas and the Daughter of Night, delivering the message specifically to the two in Widowmaker and Lifetaker armor. Mogaba claims he is preparing counterattacks meant to punish the attackers, though internally he lacks confidence. He leaves the palace issuing orders as he goes. Outside, Mogaba encounters the White Crow observing him. He summons the bird to his shoulder and asks if it is who he believes it to be, hinting at deeper forces now directly observing events. In Chapter 115, the focus is on the Southgate defense. The Great General relies on a select group of trusted officers, all related to Gopal Singh, to oversee the critical positions there. These officers serve in the city battalions and have personal and political ties to the Greys, the Great General, and the Protectorate, ensuring their loyalty. They are disciplined, capable of retreating strategically without panicking, and have rigorously prepared both themselves and their troops for the anticipated conflict. Originally, they had expected the Protector herself to be the target in this zone, but they remain committed to defending it. Their loyalty, preparation, and experience make them the Great General's special team for managing the high-risk tasks at the South Gate, forming a critical line of defense against the company's assault. In Chapter 116, the captain's forces attempt to advance through the Barbican, which turns into a deadly maze due to collapsing walls that trap her, her staff, and a dozen men. The falling blocks trigger defensive mechanisms, including poisoned darts and burning oil, creating a severe threat. Sleepy positions herself at the center of the column, splitting the invading forces and making a massive counterattack likely. The narrator directs Arcana to find Sovereign to build steps and manage siege equipment for the rest of the troops. The soldiers from Sien clash fiercely with the city battalions and Mogaba's 2nd Territorial, causing heavy fighting, though support from Arcana, Shukrat, and Tobo prevents them from being overwhelmed. As Tobo regains focus and uses his sorcery in combination with the girl's weaker powers, they deploy unconventional attacks such as stinging insects, fiery worms, and snow-like projectiles to stall the enemy. Despite progress, the forces remain confined until nightfall, when the unknown shadows and hidden realm can act. In Chapter 117, Mogaba personally takes command of the riverfront defenses, finding morale low among the 2nd Territorial troops after repeated setbacks. Leading a counterattack with his lifeguard, he regains lost ground, exploiting the lack of enemy support from above. Reinforcements sent by the enemy are ineffective due to small group sizes, and the remaining attackers retreat downriver in overloaded barges. Mogaba uses the White Crow as a messenger and spy, gathering intelligence without revealing his disloyalty. He orders Sergeant Mugworth to mobilize all able men to relieve the South Gate. Arriving at the palace as dusk deepens, he observes several fires and collapsed structures. He learns the enemy has reduced defenses at the city's downriver end, reinforced by survivors from upriver, and commands that Aradatha's soldiers take their positions while his own men move to the waterfront. Mogaba rounds up captured fireball throwers and reorganizes the city's defenses, understanding the enemy is temporarily stalled, but recognizing that Croker and the company remain a significant threat. In Chapter 118, leadership of the Black Company changes after Sleepy's sudden death. Lady is incapacitated and unable to lead, and Croker refuses to resume command, insisting the company must move forward without delay. He argues that hesitation will give their allies, the Children of the Dead, time to reconsider their losses. Croker urges Sovereign to take command, noting that Sleepy deliberately prepared him for the role. Sovereign reluctantly accepts, agreeing to become captain while reserving the right to step down later. His first order is to remove Croker from frontline danger, declaring that Croker must survive to preserve and maintain the annals which only he can fully read and interpret. Though angry, Croker accepts the order. He announces Sovereign's appointment to the officers and reflects that staying alive is now essential, not only for the annals, but for a secret plan tied to fulfilling the company's obligation to Shvetia. In Chapter 119, Arcana secretly infiltrates Aradatha Singh's headquarters, guided and concealed by the hidden folk. She enters through a window while Singh sleeps, prepared to flee instantly if discovered. Arcana wakes Aradatha and delivers Croker's message. The captain asks whether he received earlier messages and whether he is willing to spare Taglios further bloodshed. Aradatha replies that he desires peace but lacks authority to end the war. He has sworn obligations and given his word, and Taglios remains under the great general's command. If Mogaba orders a halt, Aradatha will obey immediately, but he cannot act independently. Arcana confirms this is his final position and withdraws before further discussion. Though exhausted, Aradatha cannot sleep afterward, troubled by the encounter and by memories of his father Narayan Singh, whose murderer remains hidden within the ruined palace. In Chapter 120, Mogaba withdraws from direct fighting due to exhaustion and instead relies on the White Crow as a scout and messenger. Through the Crow, he learns that the hidden folk serve Tobo as a messianic figure called the Kim, meaning one who walks with the dead, not a Nuengbao title. Realizing Tobo's central role, Mogaba reassesses the war. He concludes that continued fighting will devastate Taglios regardless of victory, leading to chaos, religious violence, and criminal rule. He believes the enemy's true objective is not the city, but the capture or destruction of Mogaba, Gopal the Kadidas, and especially the daughter of Night. Mogaba proposes abandoning Taglios to spare it further destruction and continuing resistance from eastern strongholds such as Agra or Mukra. Gopal understands this is not cowardice but sacrifice, though it would endanger families and allies. As Mogaba presses Gopal to choose between staying to fight or withdrawing to save the city, a new explosion signals the fighting has resumed. In Chapter 121, the company's advance toward the palace is stalled by a stubborn Taglian defensive cluster. Croker observes from the air, frustrated that the defenders, largely Vedna and Sherar City battalions, refuse to break even under sorcery and pressure from the unknown shadows. Their faith sustains their resistance, forcing the company to go over the defenses rather than through them. Using flying posts, exhausted Tobo lifts groups of children of the dead over the position, while the unknown shadows provide erratic and largely ineffective support. As the fighting continues, Croker leaves the battle to check on Lady, recognizing that her condition may matter more than the immediate clash. He finds her unchanged, suspended between life and death, murmuring incoherently in her sleep. Her condition offers no clarity or hope, only confusion and despair. After a brief visit, Croker leaves, reminded why he avoids seeing her too often while the battle for Taglios continues. In Chapter 122, only 2 unmarried second cousins of Gopal leave Taglios with the great general and the commander of the Greys. The rest stay behind to face the invaders. Mogaba leads the group to an abandoned 18-foot fishing boat, which they steal and prepare to sail downriver. He struggles internally with his pride and past failures, reflecting on his life and previous sieges. The White Crow scouts them, reminding Mogaba that no battle has been lost, though he insists the war has been won and that he intends to do no further harm. As they attempt to raise the boat's lateen sail to harness a favorable breeze, the Crow objects, threatening them. Mogaba defies it, asserting his autonomy. Gopal intervenes, swatting the Crow into the river. As they prepare to depart, monstrous, grinning creatures appear in the light of the city fires, surrounding the boat and signaling new, unknown dangers for Mogaba and his companions. In Chapter 123, Aradatha Singh is awakened by pain when a white crow attacks his hand. Guards capture the bird, which begins speaking. Aradatha realizes the crow is a messenger of the Protector, who claims authority despite having been buried beneath the glittering plain. Through the crow, the Protector announces that Mogaba and Gopal Singh are dead, supposedly destroyed by enemy shadow creatures after attempting something foolish. She declares Aradatha her viceroy in Taglios and intends to issue him instructions. Aradatha immediately rejects her authority. Without hesitation, he orders his officers to spread word for all units to disengage wherever possible and to open discussions for terms with the enemy. He prioritizes ending the fighting over obeying the Protector. Enraged, the crow curses him, but Aradatha has it silenced and restrained. By choosing negotiation and ordering a ceasefire, Aradatha asserts independent command and moves Taglios toward ending the war despite supernatural interference. In chapter 124, rumors spread that Mogaba sacrificed himself to spare Taglios further devastation, and the city begins adjusting to new rule with little unrest. Croker and Tobo survey the ruined palace as rescue efforts continue. Tobo confirms that Goblin and Bubu are alive somewhere in the rubble, but unreachable. Tobo also reports that Mogaba and Gopal Singh drowned while trying to escape upriver, though Croker doubts this. Suspicious graffiti referencing the Kim appears, deepening Croker's unease about Tobo's link to the unknown shadows. Croker investigates the river and discovers Mogaba's and Gopal's tortured bodies on a sandbar, proving their deaths were deliberate. He concludes Tobo likely orchestrated their capture and murder, believing Mogaba arranged his own removal to free Aradatha Singh to end the war. Croker warns Arcana that Tobo may be unstable and dangerous. Fearing further violence, Croker resolves to watch Tobo closely while the city settles uneasily into peace. In chapter 125, Croker takes Lady outside for a picnic with Arcana and Shukrat, hoping sunlight and fresh air might break the spell imprisoning her. Tobo confirms Lady's condition is not the same enchantment affecting Soulcatcher and Sedvad, and says her survival is remarkable, though he cannot heal her. Croker spends time speaking to Lady, sharing memories and voicing growing concerns about Tobo, but nothing changes her condition. A corporal interrupts with urgent news that troops at the palace may have located the Cadidas and the Daughter of Night. Croker orders extreme caution and prepares to return at once. As Arcana and Shukrat help return Lady to the tent, Croker questions Arcana about possibly returning to her original world, revealing doubts about claims that Katavar is destroyed. Arcana remains skeptical. Shukrat admits her loyalty is to Tobo, but insists she will not act recklessly. In chapter 126, Croker is redirected from the palace to the south gate to greet the arriving Prabindradra, representing the city's legitimate ruler, as instructed by Sovereign. He gathers a contingent from the city battalions and officers, but the route to the gate is sparsely populated and receives little response from the city's inhabitants. Upon arrival, Croker observes the prince, noting he seems worn and unimpressive, and instructs him that establishing a stable line of succession is his priority to prevent future chaos. Aradatha Singh brings a marching band and supports the operation, while Arcana confirms that the Cadidas and Daughter of Night have been located. Croker reflects on his relationships, noting that Arcana has become like a daughter, and Tobo waits for Croker's arrival. The Radisha Drakh and her brother react with distress upon seeing the ruined palace. Croker oversees recovery and logistics, ensuring control of the city while managing both the returning royalty and the city's remnants. In chapter 127, Croker and his allies work to extract the Cadidas and the Daughter of Night from a collapsed area. Tobo takes the lead inside the precarious opening, deflecting a lethal blast that fatally strikes the Prabindradra. Croker directs the rescue operation, ensuring the prince receives medical attention while Sovereign, Aradatha, and the Radisha maintain appearances to prevent panic. Tobo erects an awning, and with Shukrat's assistance begins hauling the Cadidas out on a small flying carpet. Arcana helps coordinate the extraction, ensuring safety and control over the children. Croker inspects the children, noting bruises and dehydration but no permanent injuries, confirming they will recover if properly cared for. He instructs that the children be placed with Lady for supervision, and Shukrat and Arcana volunteer to stay with them. Croker plans to collect all of Bubu's scribblings, using someone from Xian to prevent the information from being read prematurely while he himself rests to regain strength. In chapter 128, Croker focuses on post-battle responsibilities in Taglios. The fighting has ended, and he oversees memorials for the fallen, ensuring the city remains stable and potential conspirators are controlled. The children of the dead conduct a ceremonial parade with drums, horns, banners, and soldiers, honoring their comrades who died in the conflict. Croker and his allies also participate in ceremonies directed by Aradatha Singh to honor those who fell serving the Protectorate, followed by formal recognition of the Prabindradra. The funeral is attended by the city's leaders, many observing one another warily rather than mourning. Aradatha Singh emerges as the most influential man in the Taglian territories, by consolidating loyalties from surviving military units and garrisons through competence and fairness. Public sentiment begins attributing Mugabe's former title, Great General, to Aridatha. Meanwhile, Croker monitors Tobo, who remains highly talented and difficult to supervise, while preparing for the ongoing management and protection of the city. In Chapter 129, Croker oversees the destruction of the 8 kegs containing the Books of the Dead, ensuring the work of Bubu's previous incarnation is fully consumed in a controlled pyre. The fires burn out, and rubble clearance begins, with civilians supervised by soldiers. Lady, previously under a spell, emerges from a deep, near-comatose sleep into a normal slumber. Croker confirms she has been asleep for at least 15 days. He informs her the war is over, the city is occupied, Aridatha Singh is in charge, and Bubu and the Khadidas have been captured. Lady's connection to Kina did not influence her while asleep, though she experienced disturbing nightmares. Croker reassures her about the losses of key allies, including Mergen, and explains that Bubu is nearby. Lady recognizes the child as her own, conceived during the conflict, but Croker decides not to wake her yet, noting the current chaos is enough without adding further strain. In Chapter 130, Croker and Tobo awaken Goblin, who has been possessed by the Khadidas. Using One Eye's enchanted hat and spear, they restore Goblin's consciousness and partial control over his body, keeping the Khadidas suppressed behind barriers. Goblin struggles to regain motor control and speech, but begins responding weakly, indicating willingness to cooperate. Croker explains that the Khadidas can only communicate with Kina when controlling Goblin's body, confirming the entity's limitations. Sovereign acknowledges the situation and agrees to resume studying the annals while giving Croker space to work with Goblin. Croker devises a plan to counter the Khadidas' interference and re-establish Goblin as an ally, hoping the old Goblin's personality remains intact despite years of death and possession. The chapter emphasizes the careful suppression of the Khadidas, Goblin's gradual recovery, and Croker's strategic preparation to use him against the Khadidas while minimizing risk. In Chapter 131, Croker takes Arcana on an aerial reconnaissance over Talios to investigate rumors of Protectorate-loyal troops moving toward the city. One force crossed the main at Vednabota, while another gathered near Mukra in Ajitstan, where Mugabe had been popular. Observing the scattered, unhurried troops, Croker concludes they are unlikely to reach Taglios. During the flight, he talks with Arcana, who expresses concerns about the plane and Shadowgates and her desire to see her original home and bury the dead. Croker emphasizes the need to act quickly before Kina, Lady, Goblin, or Shivetya anticipate their plans. Shukrat joins them, and Croker discusses Tobo's capacity for both great good and potential evil, noting that Shukrat's care and firm boundaries will help restrain him. Arcana and Shukrat understand their roles in guiding him. Croker notes the force at Mukra is a greater threat than Vednabota, posing potential challenges for Aridatha Singh in maintaining peace with Mugabe's former allies. In Chapter 132, Lady sits beside Bubu, emotionally affected by memories of Narayan Singh taking her daughter, which profoundly altered her life and theirs. Croker urges Lady to leave Bubu in his care and get some food, stretch, and enjoy the day, emphasizing she needs to regain her composure before he leaves to oversee operations. Croker plans to release the first contingent of the Children of the Dead, scouting south across the plain and keeping the Shadowgate forces occupied with supply collection. Lady refuses to accompany him, citing that there is no one else to care for Bubu, exposing her vulnerability to the darkness. Croker reassures himself that he can manage and secure both Lady and Bubu. After convincing Lady to leave, he takes Bubu's hand, noting her cold fingers but steady breathing. The White Crow observes quietly, highlighting Croker's domestic concern and vigilance over the safety of his wife and daughter. In Chapter 133, Croker leads Goblin and the others in preparation for a critical strike against Kina. Only 4 humans plus the White Crow accompany him. Goblin rides his flying post, tethered for safety in case the Khadidas regains control. Goblin is now stronger, able to manage simple tasks and hold One Eye's spear without triggering the demon inside. They scout areas of the plain and check for the Neph, finding no evidence of them, though Panda Man reports the Neph remain active around the Shadowgate. Croker reviews strategy with Goblin, emphasizing the urgency of acting before Kina realizes their presence and that they possess a weapon capable of harming her, the spear created by One Eye. Goblin understands the plan and climbs back onto his flying post, prepared for the mission. Croker ensures safety measures are in place, including extra lines for the harness, while acknowledging Goblin's willingness to risk himself to destroy the Cottitus parasite and confront Kina directly. In Chapter 134, Tobo operates largely unchecked in Talios as Lady cannot maintain her oversight and the only other checks on him are distracted. Nights in the city grow chaotic, with unknown shadows tormenting the populace, though few die. Tobo is haunted in dreams by ancestral women, his mother, Nanagoda, and great-grandmother Hongtre, who disapprove of his vengeful intentions. Their warnings and metaphors try to steer him from rash action, but sleep deprivation clouds his judgment. Meanwhile, Aradatha Singh works tirelessly in his offices, maintaining order in Talios through reason and public scrutiny, avoiding secret dealings. Displaced and frustrated citizens begin punishing obstructionists, with Shadar seen encouraging violence, though Aradatha remains apparently unaware. Confident and fatigued, Tobo approaches Singh's office without armor or proper vigilance, intending revenge. The hidden folk cannot provide intelligence, and the sentries are asleep. Tobo opens the sealed office door only to be struck from behind, falling into darkness, realizing he has walked into a trap he had been previously warned about. In Chapter 135, Lady struggles with her emotions while guarding Bubu, determined to maintain control until Croker returns. After 4 days, she can no longer resist and begins unraveling the spells keeping Bubu asleep, acting quickly and decisively. As the spells release, Bubu awakens, but her eyes show the cold, serpentine presence of Kina rather than the familiar family gaze, startling Lady. Recognizing the threat, Lady asserts control, understanding that the Daughter of Nights Love Me aura has already subtly affected her. She draws a dagger from her belt, a memento from her time as captain of the Black Company, and addresses the child with both love and a firm warning. She will not allow Bubu Kina to harm the world. Despite resistance from Kina and the Daughter of Night, Lady drives the blade through the child's chest. Bubu experiences a catastrophic psychic and physical shock, unconscious before her body collapses, while Lady endures the extreme mental strain of this necessary act. In Chapter 136, Croker and Goblin descend the fortress stairwell to confront Kina, but Goblin rushes ahead recklessly. Croker halts the descent, realizing they cannot proceed safely without light, and they retreat to retrieve lanterns from Arcana and Shukrat. With light restored, the group descends again. Goblin senses that Kina is stirring, confirming their timing is critical. At the black barrier guarding Kina's prison, Croker orders the girls to retreat for their safety. Goblin overcomes his fear and charges through the barrier while Croker follows. Goblin drives One-Eye's spear into Kina's temple. Croker completes a prepared spell that destroys Goblin's flying post and seals himself in protective Varashk material. A massive explosion follows, shaking the cavern. When the light fades, Croker finds no sign of Goblin or Kina's body, only fragments and the twisted remains of One-Eye's spear, implying Kina's destruction and Goblin's apparent sacrifice. In Chapter 137, Croker, Arcana, and Shukrat return from the assault on Kina, their Varashk clothing damaged and bodies bruised, though all their flying posts survived. They arrive at the Grove of Doom, now empty of humans, and Croker reflects on the potential consequences of Kina's destruction, worrying about the Daughter of Night's reaction and Lady's well-being. Weather forces them to descend, taking refuge in a gunny farming village until the storm abates. Upon returning to Talios, they notice heightened alertness at the company barracks. Servin informs Croker that General Aradatha Singh has Tobo isolated in a secure cell, unreachable by the unknown shadows, and that Tobo is hurt. Croker also learns that Lady is conscious but unresponsive. He goes to her quarters with Arcana for support. Lady is found despondent, having tried to kill Bubu during the confrontation with Kina, and breaks down emotionally. Croker comforts her, uncertain if she can recover her strength or hope. In Chapter 138, Bubu remains in a catatonic, dissociative state following her recovery, observed constantly by guards, including a veteran Shadar. She is clean, dressed, and physically cared for by Suruvija Singh and her children. Croker and Arcana attempt to engage Bubu using subtle presence and whispered words, eventually eliciting slight responses as she turns her head, indicating some awareness. Despite this, Bubu expresses nihilistic despair, believing the world has no future, salvation, or age of rebirth following Kina's defeat. Croker discusses with her the purpose of the Year of the Skulls, realizing that the deceivers intended it to purge corruption and enable righteous souls to advance. Lady arrives taking her place beside Bubu and attempting to connect with her daughter emotionally, while Suruvija and her children exit embarrassed. Bubu shows traces of Kina's lingering influence, demonstrating supernatural strength and a deceiver's cunning. Croker recognizes that a secret deceiver may have supplied her with a strangling scarf, signaling ongoing hidden threats. In Chapter 139, Croker uncovers that the source of Bubu's strangling scarf was not a deceiver, but Bijar, Suruvija's son, influenced by Bubu's Love Me effect and sent to a secret Strangler member to retrieve the Rumal. Bijar is punished appropriately by his mother, while the deceiver who supplied the scarf meets the fate of his goddess along with accomplices. Croker focuses on Lady and Bubu, realizing only sorcery could heal them. Tobo is the sole individual capable of performing the necessary magic, as Arcana and Shukrat lack the expertise. Concerned for Bijar's safety, Croker instructs Suvrin that the boy cannot remain imprisoned. Croker and Shukrat then seek the Great General, intending to locate and extract Tobo. They subdue Aradatha Singh using Shukrat's sleep spell, transporting him by flying post into the moonlight. Croker confronts Singh, leveraging the threat of violence to compel him to reveal Tobo's location, exploiting Singh's fear of heights, and sets him down safely on the north bank of the river. In Chapter 140, Croker focuses on saving Tobo before he can help Lady and Bubu. Tobo's Taglian captors had neglected his injuries, leaving him near death from a severe head wound. With the assistance of the Children of the Dead's top physicians and surgeons, Croker performs delicate brain surgery to remove a dozen dangerous bone chips from Tobo's brain. The operation lasts 12 hours, with Shukrat present throughout, offering support. Croker handles most of the procedure personally, using his fellow surgeons as extensions of his hands. He senses the presence of Tobo's mother's ghost overseeing the work. After successfully completing the surgery, Croker collapses from total physical and emotional exhaustion, and kind attendants ensure he is taken to a bed to recover. This chapter establishes that Tobo's survival and recovery are now secure, allowing him to later use his sorcery to heal Lady and Bubu. In Chapter 141, Tobo survives surgery and briefly regains consciousness, but the crisis shifts to Lady and Bubu. Croker is summoned and finds Lady barely breathing, struggling for air after damage to her throat. Bubu, however, has just died. Croker understands that she had no will to live after losing Kina and her purpose. Refusing to accept her death, he orders her body packed in ice, believing she may still be saved. He decides to take Bubu to the ice cavern beneath the fortress with no name, hoping the cold and Shivetya's domain may preserve or restore her. Lady's flying post is used to lift the ice-packed body. Shukrat remains behind to watch over Tobo and ensure he heals Lady when able. Croker informs Suvrin of the situation, then departs with Arcana and the White Crow, racing against time and decay as they fly toward the ice caves. In Chapter 142, Croker places Bubu in the ice cavern near Soulcatcher, with Arcana setting stasis spells relayed by the White Crow. Croker realizes too late that Soulcatcher controls the crow and understands the sorcery of the ice, raising the danger that she could free herself. While Croker grieves beside Bubu, Arcana disappears. She has taken the flying post and the Shadowgate key, deliberately stranding Croker in the glittering stone. Arcana leaves Croker his post only partway up, ensuring he cannot pursue her. Alone with the White Crow and trapped in exile, Croker survives on Shivetya's mana and bitter reflection. With no rescue coming and fearing for Lady and Tobo, he updates the annals using Baladitya's materials. Time becomes meaningless as despair deepens. Soulcatcher remains imprisoned but mocking, unable to escape without hands. 5 or 6 sleeps into Croker's isolation, the Neph begin appearing in his dreams, signaling a new danger. In Chapter 143, Croker remains stranded in the fortress with no name, enduring Soulcatcher's reminders that she is bound to Shivetya through the White Crow. His exile worsens when the Washane, and Washone invade his dreams, their presence filling him with terror. Shivetya grows impatient with Croker's delay in freeing him and begins forcing direct mental contact. Gradually, Shivetya breaches Croker's defenses and draws him into shared dream visions, revealing the true history of the Glittering Plain, the Black Company, and the long struggle between Kina and Shivetya. Croker learns that Shivetya chose the company as his instrument long before Kina chose Lady, and that Shivetya's plan was ultimately the wiser. He understands Mergen's past dislocation in time as Shivetya's influence. Shvetia shows Croker the company's future under Sovereign, marching south toward a new existence. Armed with this knowledge, Croker confronts the final question. What will happen to the glittering plane if Shvetia is released? In chapter 144, Croker observes that Shvetia, though less powerful than Kina, is far quicker mentally and has rapidly influenced the world, particularly targeting Shukrat due to her unusually strong mind. The demon avoids connecting with Tobo, whose recent behavior suggests potential complications. Shukrat realizes the prolonged absence of Arcana and Croker may indicate a problem, but she hesitates to leave Tobo, whose health continues to suffer from setbacks and the army's movement. Shvetia regularly updates Croker on the Black Company's southward progress, but Croker avoids witnessing Lady's grim condition. Meanwhile, Arcana has independently returned to the Varoshk world using the key to the Shadow Gates. She discovers widespread devastation. The Shadows have decimated the population, destroyed resources, and left few survivors. Captured by her family, Arcana loses her post and clothing, but is made Queen Ant of the surviving group, tasked with ensuring survival and navigating the collapsed Shadowgate network. Shvetia, displeased with others, is aware of Croker's remaining tasks. In chapter 145, Shukrat arrives at the fortress through a hole in the roof while Croker is asleep. The White Crow wakes him. Croker explains that Arcana ran off to her Varoshk home and is now in trouble, having been captured by her relatives. Shukrat knows this because of her connection with Shvetia. Croker and Shukrat discuss Tobo's health, which alternates between good and bad days, both physically and mentally, and how he is influenced by the ghosts of his mother, grandmother, and Sahra. These ancestral spirits intervene whenever Tobo acts against their guidance, and he fears their patience might run out, which could result in them taking him away permanently, leaving his body to die. Shukrat confirms that Tobo believes in the presence and authority of these ghostly women. After catching up, Shukrat prepares to rest while Croker begins planning his next moves, including a rescue, all while reflecting on Tobo's precarious situation. In chapter 146, Croker and Shukrat approach the Varoshk fortress Ruknavar to rescue Arcana. The Shadowgate is being watched, but they travel by night, using distractions and the unknown shadows to bypass sentries. Shukrat ensures the creatures understand they will confront experienced defenders, giving them a strategic advantage over typical killer shadows. They discover that only a few Varoshk occupy the fortress, and Arcana is being hidden by a small faction of survivors. Croker and Shukrat infiltrate the fortress, leaving two young boys safe in the trees and confiscating posts and clothing. The White Crow leads them to Arcana's chamber, where she joyfully meets Croker. They gather essential items and exit through a small window. While leaving, a child wanders into the hallway but is neutralized by a sleep spell. Croker and Shukrat head south, discussing Arcana's safety and the plan to return to the fortress with no name while preparing to handle Lady's recovery if necessary. In chapter 147, Croker stands before Shvetia, knowing he must finally set aside all remaining distractions to fulfill his promise. His last unresolved concern is Lady, who remains alive but lacks the will to fight for recovery. After waiting as long as he can, Croker sends Arcana and Shukrat to bring Lady south to the fortress, hoping proximity to Shvetia may help her. The Nef appear, hostile and agitated, but Shvetia calms them, explaining that his release will not destroy them, but give them new purpose maintaining the glittering plane. Croker realizes his bond with Shvetia is now deep enough to share awareness of the world through the demon's perception. After time passes indistinctly, Croker accepts that all preparations are complete. He asks Shvetia if the moment has come, writes a final letter to his daughters, and confirms his readiness. Surrounded by the Nef, now aligned with him, Croker sets down the annals and declares his work finished. In chapter 148, Arcana and Shukrat bring Lady and Tobo to Croker at the fortress with no name. Croker's note explains that he and Shvetia have traded places. Shvetia becomes mortal, occupying Croker's body, while Croker becomes a vast immortal sea dragon in the ocean of history. The Nef are content, and the glittering plane continues undisturbed. Arcana and the narrator debate who will maintain the annals, taking turns when Tobo allows. Lady is recovering, displaying magical fireballs, drawing power from Shvetia, which allows her to regain her former strength. The group observes the ongoing balance of the world. Soulcatcher remains contained to preserve it. Sovereign prepares to travel to the Shin Shadowgate, acknowledging his role in the New Order. Croker reflects on immortality, memory, and the continuing life of the company, recognizing that the few remaining shadows are weak and harmless. Order is restored, and the world moves into its next phase.